YouTube has started, and I got to get TikTok going. The moans and the groans of a dog with no friends. Hello, Angela. We are live on YouTube currently.
Sweet.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling great about a bunch of reports from the Baldoni and Lively case.
You are, yeah. It's
some interesting developments.
Some very interesting developments in the Baldoni case, and we're bringing it to you live. We're bringing it to you live. Guilty Angel's here.
You said it better.
She brought her clapping hands. So glad to see you.
There's also a dog in our house that's groaning. And just so you guys know, it's not me. I'm not doing it.
Oh, sure you're not.
Are you on TikTok too?
I'm doing TikTok right now. I'm behind.
Get your shit together, Dale.
I'm trying, it's not as easy as you think it is, you know what I mean? Especially when you make Thai food. Oh my God. Delicate's moving furniture. Oh my God, that's the worst thing I ever heard.
Well, you don't love moving furniture?
Well, no. Contrary to the rest of society, I loathe moving furniture. I'm so glad that I'm now at the age. I didn't know that there was an age that was going to come where it was going to be too old for people to even ask. Like I
don't
used
ask
to.
him. He'll put his back out, and then he'll be our responsibility.
Guilty Angel said that she's almost done the book. She called it So Juicy.
Oh, sweet.
She loves it, and she's almost done. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
I also thought it was juicy, and I also loved it.
Sometimes I barely remember it.
The book?
Yeah. Blacklisted indie filmmaker Dale Wheatley and co-host Angela C.
Why'd you put C? Like there's another Angela that I have to like.
Well, you never know, dude. What if it was an Angela B?
Like we're on the same like little league team or something. I need to be differentiated.
Jim Bob just joined, but I know Jim Bob's not going to stay because there's no way somebody as cool as Jim Bob would stick around for.
Jim Bob's definitely got better things to do.
Way cooler than me.
For sure.
I'm not saying cooler than you, but they can't see you. See? So Delicate is getting a new sit-stand desk assembled professionally tomorrow morning. So I got to get stuff moved around for that. That's exciting. I should probably get one of those. I don't. I think I sit too much. I got to post my videos, bro. I got like 10 or 11 like shorts that I just have not put up yet. Is that stupid? I'm stupid.
That's not stupid.
They're not evergreen. They're like, they're like shit that's passing by. Like there was like 3 really good Karen Reed ones that I just didn't post. I don't know why I'm not doing it. I think I'm trying to self-sabotage.
Well, you should just post those anyway because they're still relevant to the
because people will still like who want to go browse. It'll be like, hey, who's this guy that nobody watches? Like, kind of an interesting piece of content.
Also, it's an interesting record of how we were always right about everything.
Yeah. It's a great record to have. Dale and Angela, says Jenna. She has arrived. So good to see you. Who else is here? Italian mother at best.
Hey, forgive me. I'm going to go...
Italian mother at best is with us.
I'm going to go give that dog a calming treat.
Angela's going to go and give the dog a lovely little calming treat. Isn't that nice? Let me get the solo here. And then... all right. It's just me. What's up, guys? Dude, we have a huge update. There's a lot of activity in the case between Lively and Baldoni, and I'm kind of excited about it because really, dude, they're not doing great. And I should probably wait to get into it before, we get too into it because some people are joining, and I think this is like sort of the juice for the tea. It's the real tea of the evening. This and that. This and that. Erica's here. Hi, Erica. You just snuck in there, Erica. I didn't even see you. Young is here. What's up, Young? I hope you're well. I hope you're really well. It's so good to see you again. Thank you for always coming by and saying hi, consistently. You know what I mean? It's really good to see you. We have really big updates that I'm excited about. P. Diddy, I'll get into that while Angela's away. He's going to be sentenced in October 3rd. It's so weird that this dude is like in jail and celebrating a win. Like, he's going to be incarcerated for, and this is the other thing. So he has a maximum of 20 years. Everyone that I've come across who knows anything about sentencing guidelines and so on and so forth is that it's very likely that he would serve a concurrent sentence for these. So that would mean that he would be serving a maximum of 10 years. And the prosecutor, oddly enough, is only asking for, I think at the minimum, like 55, maybe 55 to 65 months. So for some reason, the prosecutor is really trying to help the defense. So the defense then comes back, or they're asking for 2 years. If he gets 2 years, then he'll be out a year after that sentencing hearing because he'll have a year time served. So it could be like lickety split for this dude. Like, this guy might be just on an extended vacation between some cement walls and find himself like, freaking out again, doing his little freak shows and whatever it is he does, this guy. I guess I shouldn't talk shit because he might come hunting. Might come looking for a guy like me with a funny hat on. Anyway, good to see you guys.
So do you think that the prosecutor's in cahoots?
Somebody just showed me.
Did you not hear me talking?
Yeah, I did. Hang on one second, though, because it's Mr. Hands, 58, showed up and said, day 5,000 of asking, what happened to Jerry Swindoll, the blind boy? He was never seen after Don's Plum, and I will find him.
That's really funny, Jeff.
That's fucking hilarious, man. Well, where is Jerry Swindoll? I think...
Dale, you totally ignored me.
that he has fallen into a volcano. What?
I was talking about the prosecutor for the Diddy trial.
Yes.
But if you've moved on, we can
No,
do
come
that.
on. That was worth comedy. Tell me.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know why couldn't have waited until we talked about what I brought up. Do you think the prosecutor is in cahoots? Cahoots.
Well, I'll say this, man. Like, I feel like he's doing him favors. Like, if you believe what some are saying, it was a totally botched trial by the prosecutor, and now he's asking for a light sentence. He's asking for a light sentence. He put all that.
Why would the prosecutor ask for a light sentence? Does that make any sense?
He put all that evidence out there. He put loads and loads and loads of evidence. He had women bearing their souls in terror for all the jury to hear and the judge to hear. And then he's going in and asking for half of the maximum sentence on what is obviously a win already for P. Diddy. So when you ask, is the judge in on it? I have to say...
No, not the judge, the prosecutor.
The prosecutor, I should say...
We don't know.
I have to say, I don't know. I have to say, I don't know.
It seems like
it does, man. The prosecutor, just totally fucking ruins the case, if you believe what others are saying. I was not there. I can only opine on this based on the little I have been able to glean. And, clearly, though, everyone agrees that it was a giant loss for the prosecutor at the very least. Biggest promise ever going into this trial of the underbelly of show business exposed.
I don't believe that a federal prosecutor would screw up this much if it wasn't on purpose.
And then ask for half the maximum. Like, I'm saying, like this, the prosecutor was trying to put Sean Combs away for life. That was what the prosecutor, they cooked it up into a RICO. They were going to put this man away for life. That was what he was facing. That was what they were trying to do. They got 2 convictions out of this jury and are now going and asking the judge for half of the max on what would have been at max only 10 years of what they were hoping for, which was the life sentence. I can't make sense of any of it. It seems completely fucking crazy to me. And it does seem to me a lot like, hey man, I got this money, you got that bank, let me put it in there and we'll be good.
Right?
All you got to do is make this thing go messy. Make it. It was you went over this in our last when we covered it last, but the defense was just like, yeah, we're good. We're good. Like, it was that bad. It was that bad that the defense had so little work to do. I mean, again, typically defenses aren't going to necessarily be as long as the prosecution unless they're loaded rich, and there's a lot of extenuating circumstances around the case, like you had in O.J. Simpson, where they're trying to create a forensic pile of fucking mess out of that whole thing, or Karen Reed, where there's a cover-up. So whenever there's like something really big happening like that, you're gonna, you know, maybe have a really long defense. But most trials are short, so or most defenses are relatively short because it's the burden on the prosecution. And
also, I thought it was just really weird that they were charging him with RICO charges like in the beginning, but then throughout the trial they didn't actually describe a conspiracy.
Yeah,
like it's just so weird. So did they deliberately send the jury back with the only charges that they knew wouldn't succeed or would have the minimal penalty?
Well, and then they did that whole like really like taking the legs out of their own case just before. They dropped a bunch of charges. They dropped all these
right
charges
before deliberation.
So they already showed the jury, and then when I read some of the juror, like one of the jurors who was actually not in the deliberation room, he was an alternate, but he said that, you know, sitting through the trial, that he felt like it was a joke, that the prosecution was trying to paint this really freakish lifestyle, this really kinky, weird lifestyle, with, you know, and emphasizing the use of baby oil specifically, said the juror, and try to spin that off as some kind of RICO charge. And he was like, it was a joke. So it was just like the whole thing was kind of cooked up to be bad in the first place. Or did they just like have to try to live up to their own hype? Was it about trying to live up to the hype?
But a federal prosecutor wouldn't do that.
Well, so what?
You know what I mean?
Right. And as you pointed out, and rightfully so, because it's very true, federal prosecutors win like 90-something% of their cases.
They don't bring charges that they can't support with evidence.
They're extremely, extremely...
That's weird.
...judicious.
So... I'm a little...
Rainbow Pickle is here and saying that they'll try and behave. Did they misbehave?
No, but...
I don't think that was you. I think it was somebody else.
Last time you were just passing around pickles.
The pickles.
Anybody else want one?
That's fantastic.
I have to explain, I'm a little teary-eyed today because you cooked onions and I'm just a little bit, it's like gaseous in our house today.
Well, it's actually
I'm not
garlic
tearful
too,
because we're talking about anything sad or if I'm sad, but I am a little bit teary.
So, yeah. And then, you know, of course, now there's these other... It's so interesting because, like, Diddy he got sued again, as I mentioned yesterday.
Yeah.
In one of the most hideous... I mean, it's just so gross what he is alleged to have done in this lawsuit. But I was like, why are these people, like, poking the dragon? I'm like, that dude's going to be, like, walking the straight and narrow because he's going to be on probation for...
No way. Him? No way.
You don't think?
No. Because he thinks he's invincible, especially if it turns out that if he knows why this succeeded, like if he bought a prosecutor or something, like then he's absolutely going to feel like he's protected and that nothing bad could happen. People were sharing stories. I don't know how true they are, so I'm not saying that I know anything, but people were sharing stories about how he would get in trouble and then the police would come to his house and then he would just talk to them and they would like shake hands and the police would leave. Like, that's why he had that reputation for being an informant. A lot of people thought that that Diddy was like working with the feds.
Yeah.
Because he would just like talk to some law enforcement person who showed up because like there was complaints about guns and whatever, violence or whatever. And then he would just like smooth it over. And everyone's like, how could he do that? He must have dropped a name, you know?
For real.
So... I don't think that he's going to stop criming. That guy's been criming for like 30 years, maybe longer. Who knows?
By the way, Young is here.
Sweet.
On TikTok. So good to see the Young. It's wild. It's an amazing situation, and just the fact that we're sitting here and have a conversation about whether or not did Diddy's attorneys. Or did Diddy, whatever, did they buy off the prosecutor? Like, did it happen?
I can't stand his name. It's so stupid.
Sean Combs?
No.
Shawnee?
He said, did Diddy, and I was like...
Did Diddy?
It's so stupid. It's so stupid we have to talk like this. Or like freak-offs. Like, bro, you're supposed to be a rapper. You can't come up with something more clever than... So dumb.
Cosmic Urgency said that it's scary to be anyone who testified against him. It gives him anxiety to think about it. It gives me anxiety. Like, literally, I had pangs of anxiety thinking about in particular, obviously the victims, but also witnesses for sure.
For sure.
Like all the posts were on Reddit right after the verdict were all about like 50 Cent trying on like bulletproof vests and stuff, you know?
Man.
Because that dude, like, he said a lot of shit.
Yeah, but I think it's okay to be a hater. You know, like, he's not doing anything about it. Like, I think that's acceptable in that like crime culture.
Yeah.
That you can talk a lot, but if you're not doing anything, they just let you talk. You know, because there's like a little bit of power in being hated by somebody else who's powerful.
Yes.
And so I think they just let that slide.
Is there? Because I don't get that. I'm loathed by one of the most powerful actors ever, and I don't get that. Where's mine?
Maybe it's because you guys are aren't both the same level of fame and power or money or whatever.
Me and Leo.
Yes, but that would be the difference between 50 Cent and Diddy or whatever.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, right. Like Blake Lively and Baldoni.
But I do actually think that it gives you a little bit of power. You get a little bit of cred because a celebrity is pissed at you. You know, those guys. I mean, one of the reasons why it's so weird that he's pissed at you is that he has all of the resources and the money to just water off a duck's back, like with everything, you know? That he actually got bent out of shape about something he thought you did gives you a bit of power. It's one of the things that, like, they teach you in, like, I don't know, like anger programs or conflict resolution. It's like, are you going to give somebody else the power to affect you emotionally like that? Well, he did. He gave you the power to affect him emotionally.
Yeah.
That he got that pissed at you that he had to act like so out of pocket.
That he's still so upset about it.
That he's still pissed about it.
I
means
kind of
that
love it.
That he gave you a certain power that other people don't get.
Yeah, I kind of love it. You're
over
right.
him.
I dig it. You're right. I dig it.
That's why it's fucking weak. You know?
It's totally weak.
It's weak to get pissed off at people, especially if you're
Get the
like...
shit out of here, because then it's more fun like that.
What's up?
I've been tweaking the set, Angela, because, you know, we're running a business here. You know? Mm-hmm. We're trying to sell books. Book sales are pretty good, by the way. We're putzing along in the book sales. And you know why? It's because people are so kind to this book.
Because it's a good book.
People are very kind to this book, and I'm very excited. So the book I'm referring to, of course, is Too Real, a Hollywood Memoir. If you're new to this channel, I wrote it.
Cosmic Urgency is asking, what did Tupac do to Diddy? Do you know what the lore is?
Well, the lore is that Tupac, to Diddy. What did Tupac do to Diddy? I don't know. I don't know what that is. All I know is that, like, I think it was like a kind of like a John Gotti situation. Is how I
think it was supposed to be like retribution or something, right? No,
I thought it was like it was taking him out so that he could take the way you know,
that's BIG you're thinking.
I'm talking about shit I don't know, but
yeah, I know.
but the best memory I have of this is that I guess the story I remember most about it is that Diddy was trying to move on up, and this was the way he was getting up. He was taking bosses out, basically. He was taking rap bosses out.
Right, like if you, like he, what is it called? He claimed the throne by unseating it.
Exactly. Right. You know.
Well, but there was something else though. There was like a reason. I think that because Tupac knew it was going to happen before it happened, so there must have been some sort of.
Well, there was you know, I mean, again, you know,
we're just guessing.
We're
was
guessing.
Like 10 when it happened.
I was like 20, and but when all the shit was going down, there was, or not when all the shit is going down, as a tactic, as a tactic. You're gonna, you know, if there's an existing conflict, if there's like a lot of tension between two parties, and one of them you already don't like, or one of them you want to use that tension as an opportunity, as an advantage to move up in the world, you can. And so we don't know like what the circumstances might be that might have led to, because it might not be conflict, it might be all opportunity. The thing about that game is that it's dangerous for the prize it yields. You know what I mean? For the promise that it gives you. So people take people out in show business because of the promise that they have to potentially become, you know, something important at the door.
Yeah, Delicate said that's why Pac went back to California and to Death Row and Dre. So like, maybe did he leave his record label and he was angry about it. I don't know. I should learn this. We should learn this, right?
We can. You know me, man. I can opine for days about shit I know nothing about.
I don't know much, but I do believe that he's responsible for it. Isn't that weird?
What, did he?
Yes.
Well, what you're trying to say is that you don't know much, but you believe that the claims that he did something are credible. And the reason you believe that is because more than one person has come out, not just about these two incidents, but also other incidents, other acts of potential violence, other acts of potential like removing of one's life. And so, we know he's a bad dude.
Yes.
So it's easy to imagine him in these bad situations, and we also know that the passing of these men is a mystery to this day, supposedly. You know what I found out statistically that blew my mind? 50% of murders in this country go unsolved. I had no idea you had a 2-in-1 chance of getting off. Had I known, I'd have probably made different choices.
You would have tried to get away with it?
I'm just saying, maybe I make different choices if I knew. I've always believed, you just get caught. I didn't know it was like 50-50, bro. I put all my chips in for 50-50.
The weirdest crime shows that we watch are the ones where they, like the husband or the wife or something that is a murderer will have like gotten away with the first one.
Yeah.
Like it's their next spouse that passes away in strange circumstances that makes the detectives be like, wait a minute.
You know what? That's probably why the statistic is so high. It's probably just a bunch of wives offing their husbands. Like that we just like that everyone's like just a bunch of
Yeah, it's probably vice versa statistically, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. But there's that stirring the coffee with matches kind of wife out there.
Oh yeah, right.
It's pretty wild stuff. That's an actual case.
Stirring the coffee with matches?
Yeah.
What would that do to you?
Sulfur.
Sulfur poisoning?
Sulfur poisoning. Yeah. I say it's an actual case. I have a memory of I didn't make that up. I forget where I got it from. It's not an actual anything.
What kind of garbage coffee are these people drinking that they don't know they're drinking poison?
Fucking Folgers in your cup, baby.
It's like bad enough.
No. Not the stuff you drink.
Not the stuff I drink. Not the stuff that Dale makes me, because it's amazing. It's perfect. And I would know if you stirred it with matches.
Delicate says that he attempted to unalive him in a New York City music studio. So are we talking, Delicate, then... Are we saying, did he try to?
Yes.
Well, look, man, fuck, like we can play, a spade, all these things, right? These tropes. Claire says she loves this show. Isn't that nice of her? Thank you for coming always. She goes, I can tell it's going to be really successful. Oh.
That's so sweet.
That is the sweetest thing ever. She said, she can tell it's going to be really successful to see it in its early days is really nice. That's really exciting because I have no idea what's going to happen at all.
I also like to see it in its early days.
Yeah,
it's nice to be here.
It's nice to have early days at age 55.
These onions are destroying me.
So, yeah, it's also wild. The whole thing is so fucking crazy, and the thing is wild to follow.
Okay, I have some news about some filings in the Justin Baldoni.
So we have a huge update. I think this is a big update.
Well, it's basically just like anytime that Lively's lawyers speak up, it's kind of delightful because they sit on their hands for so long until they ultimately have to tell the judge, like, listen, you have to be aware that there's some shenanigans happening. And so that's what this letter is.
Well, but I
want to tell you all about it.
Yeah, great. It breaks down into a bunch of different things, but just to set up a little bit of the framework and why I think this is a big, giant update in a big way, because is it Gottlieb? Is that his name?
Gottlieb.
Yeah, Gottlieb, who is the lawyer for Blake Lively. He paints a picture that is so interesting because, we have people we had that person that got the 24-hour timeout.
Yeah.
You sit over there. That person we give the 24-hour timeout to.
Because he was being a troll.
Yeah, he was being a troll and he was being here and he was annoying people and he was being bad. Forget about that, but I'm talking about how these people and guys like Andy Signor who literally know nothing about it. They don't really know anything other than what they're being fed about this. case, they don't understand like the ways in which the wicked ways in which they try to seed, and by they I mean Brian Friedman and all of his crew, the wicked ways in which they seed this information and try to create this bad look for Blake Lively. So the framework around this, and we'll get into the updates in detail, but the framework around this is that they're alleging that they're the ones, Brian Friedman, putting out this rumor that Blake Lively is afraid of her deposition, is trying to avoid being deposed.
I saw Sassy Dave Navarro did a whole video on it about how she's trying to delay her deposition again because she doesn't want to face big scary Brian Friedman and tell the truth. And
in this update to the judge, they point out that Blake Lively 100% wants to and intends to move forward on July 17th with her deposition. She does not want a delay.
So it's false?
And not only is it false, but they show that it's, I mean, because Brian Friedman literally is asking for that fucking date to get pushed. And they're alleging that they want to push that July 17th date so that they can send their Sassy Dave Navarros and their Andy Signors out screaming about how she successfully avoided another deposition. So they're literally trying to use the court. What they're essentially alleging is that they're using the court.
If the court,
they've gone so far as to actually use the court, not just just like hiding behind like fucking lawsuit filings.
Right,
I'm talking about they're actually like using the actual court.
Right, they're like, if the court would just change their schedule to accommodate our story, that would be really great for us.
Yeah, as soon as the court like, can we push this? The court says yes, and then they blame Blake Lively for dodging her deposition, and they just spin that out there, and it doesn't matter how many times.
It's brilliant because what they know is that their content creators are not reading.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if they put it in writing because they literally won't read it, and none of the people they make the content for are reading.
Yeah.
So they can just have it all, like they could just telegraph it all, like put it all in writing at the court, but because they know that only the people who are reading aren't on their side. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. Clara said, "Is Popcorn Planet a bad dude?" Don't answer. Is the Popcorn Planet a bad dude? So you know what? That's like almost a trick question.
Am I being scolded?
No. I was just trying to prevent.
I don't answer?
Yeah, you're not allowed to answer that question for now.
Okay.
Well, the reason is because it's like...
is it like defamatory?
Yeah, like, is that a defamatory moment? Yeah, exactly. Oh. I was like, wait, don't answer that just yet. Are we being
tricked?
Not by Claire. Claire's a friend. Claire would never trick us. She's saying, is Popcorn Planet a bad dude? Well, here's the answer. That guy, in my book, and in my opinion only, is like the lowest form of internet personality. like, I think that... And I'm ashamed that I ever associated with him at all, period. He said he was going to take down my interviews, and I hope he does. I would prefer that my history with him, because in those interviews, at least in my most recent ones, I praise him to the heavens because he promoted my book, man. He gave me my opportunity, especially after Leo successfully got rid of New York Magazine and Time Out Magazine in the UK.
That remains a good thing that he did, though. So
I'm not saying it's not. But I'm saying that my biased opinion of him at the time is not how I feel about him today. I think that guy is a misogynist, and I loathe misogyny as much as I loathe racism. They're, to me, absolutely equals. They're total equals.
Here's one thing that I think is, like, aside from like your personal opinion about the guy.
Yeah.
The way that he conducted your interview, I think, is just really telling about the way that he gathers information and how he prepares his show. So we had sent him little short excerpts from the book because he wasn't interested in reading the book. He wanted to cover the book. He wanted to interview you about the book.
Yeah.
So we sent him these little short excerpts. And I guess we tried to compile some things that we thought might be like interesting clickbaity type headlines, because we're like, okay, well, he wants something really narrow, so let's just give him like the juiciest. And so we sent it to him, and then he comes back to you and he says like, oh, so this is just frat stuff. What am I supposed to cover?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He was asking you about what he should cover on his show instead of reading, like, literally we sent him one page.
Dude, you know what was weird about that?
Like one page, and it was just like he couldn't even do it. And so what I'm saying is, like, I don't think that he does any research. I don't think that he does any reading. I think that he reports on headlines. Maybe he'll like find some highlights.
He does not read.
he doesn't want to.
And we know this because, and I brought this up yesterday, but I'll bring it up every time. He didn't know about this lawsuit involving, what's the man's name again?
Pages all crinkly.
What's the man's name again?
Shane Norman sued Wayfair and named Justin Baldoni in the lawsuit as a plaintiff.
And he
didn't even know about
Andy
it.
Signor, who represents he's calling himself the press. He's out there literally like calling Blake Lively a liar. He's calling her evil. He says all these terrible things about this woman. And when I mentioned this lawsuit, he didn't even know what was on the front page of it.
So
he hadn't even read the front page.
If you're going to follow somebody for like the news or something, like, he's not even trying to educate himself about what's going on.
No, he puts no effort in. It's one thing to be like, hey man, passively talking about like somebody passing away or a headline that gives you an inspiration to have a talk, and I do that all the time because sometimes it's not like the content so much in the article, but rather the reaction I had to it and how it like kind of branches off into a thought, even if that thought isn't, even if the headline is misleading, which is just something we live with every day now anyway. Sometimes, I can be inspired by that to have a talk. But that's got nothing to do with being lazy. Like when it comes to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, we've read almost every lawsuit that's been filed. We've gone over all the evidence that they put through on their website. We've watched countless interviews. I've created actual video content to put it out there.
Listen,
and this all as something that is not my fucking daily focus.
I don't blame him because he's super busy. His like production schedule is insane. And so like I'm sure he doesn't have any time for anything, much less reading. But he's claiming to be an expert. He's claiming to share like the inside scoop. Like he's the authority on that you should follow for this information. And he's just not. I don't think that he does any research. I don't think he does any reading. I don't think he really cares. I think that he just wants clicks. Like it's just like really low effort.
It's money. It's fame too. He loves fame. So on one of
talked about it too much.
On one of my interviews on his channel, I got bashed by some of I was telling the story about Emily Foster in the interview as it's written in the book. And basically everyone started like ganging up on me and saying, well, I was there and I should have done something about it, which makes me complicit. And they were being really mean to me in the comments.
Because they didn't know in the context. See, if he had read it, he would have been able to answer this. In the context of your book, it's not like you witnessed an assault, right?
No, of course not.
So like it's not something to intervene on. You're like, I didn't witness a crime or something that I could have stopped. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he didn't even... I don't know.
Claire just asked another question. Claire goes, were the other podcasts you did nice people? Like the crime one?
The crime one was the worst one.
So the crime one, dude, I do that guy's interview, and that interview was actually a pretty good interview, if I recall correctly. Like, I at least remember that
his questions were really bad, Dale.
Well, they were, but I think I did a really nice job.
So where'd you go to high school? Like,
stupid shit.
Nobody cares.
I got Kevin Connolly's number right here. What? It was all stupid, but like whatever. I mean, it was low. It was like low effort stuff. It was like a guy who definitely just shows up and like he was another guy. He read nothing, did nothing for the interview. I mean, I showed up. He had no idea. I don't even know if he knew my name properly. Like I got him through another podcast or whatever, and they recommended me. He had 500,000 viewers. I might have sold 5 books from that guy's interview, but that is, which just tells you like where the audience was at. But what's worse is that I give this guy my time. I do my interview with him, and I'm making content with him, and for the purpose, obviously, to benefit his site and hopefully benefit my book sales. And his extremely like alt-right wing group, and they are that. I mean, I know Cosmic Urgency hates that I bring this up, but it's what they are. They talk about loving Trump. He sells them Trump portraits.
You don't have to elaborate, though.
Well, it's just who they are. And so anyway, they started bashing on me pretty heavily. And he fucking joined in on the comments, bro. He literally jumped in. He was like, yeah, haha, and like giving like thumbs up when people were like dissing me and like saying that I was whatever. Like,
what an absolutely weird thing to do.
Fucking invited me onto his show.
Super strange.
I gave him my time, and then he fucking treated me like trash in the comments.
That's super weird.
Yeah, and then sent me a text asking if I would help him get his screenplay to somebody.
You're like, get fucked, bro.
Can you believe this fucking human being? Like, this is the kind of two-faced shit we live with on a daily basis.
So the guy, you did an interview with a guy from the Scientology channel. What's the Scientology channel called? Growing up in Scientology?
Growing up in Scientology. Yeah, Growing Up Scientology.
Okay, he was nice, right?
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
And he was a great conversation, right? He was interested.
It was a good conversation.
Okay. And then you did Larry Forte's interview.
Yeah, that was just like a guy from down the street.
Yeah, but he was really fun, right? That was a good interview?
Yeah. What are we doing? Are we going down all my interviews to decide which ones are good?
I feel like it's important to lay the groundwork that you had a really good interviews, because there's that saying that they're like, if you have a bad time with everybody, then you're the reason. Yeah. And so I don't want it to make it seem like you have bad interviews all the time, because then the common denominator is that you're a bad interviewer.
I'm not the reason.
Huh?
I'm not the reason. I'm actually a really good interview.
I know you're not the reason. I just wanted to qualify that.
You got my back.
Yes.
We have a Mariana case. Whoa, hello. Is it Mariana? Maria Tani. I'm sorry, my eyes are bad. They're 55 years old. They're failing me. Do you think Blake is telling the truth? Can you tell me why you believe her and why you don't think she could be lying? Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it with so nicely, by the way.
She could be lying.
Do you think Blake Lively is telling the truth? Well, it depends about what. So here's what I think she's telling the truth about. I think she's telling the truth that she filed a complaint against Justin Baldoni. I think she's telling the truth that Justin Baldoni...
Oh, and the reason why, I'll because that's part of the question too. The reason why is because Justin Baldoni is in writing acknowledging these complaints. So he's claiming that he didn't know, but he did know in writing.
Yeah, so I know that I believe that Blake Lively filed a complaint. I believe that she did that early in her stay on set.
That's right.
I believe that there were other people who also filed complaints, and so I do believe that there was something on the set that was inappropriate. That there was something going on in the set that shouldn't be. Now, that doesn't mean that wasn't a correctable situation. So I just want to clarify that doesn't mean that I think necessarily that what they were doing on that set was so egregious. And neither, by the way, did Blake Lively. The show went on after all. But it was what constitutes as harassment. And I believe, by the way, that harassment is a very subjective thing. So I don't believe that harassment is this sort of criminal thing that a lot of people are trying to make it out to be in this case. I believe it to be what it actually is by definition, harassment, meaning
not assault.
It's not assault, and that it's as simple as making me feel uncomfortable. So if I'm sitting in a room and somebody makes an inappropriate comment, and I say, "Hey, don't make that inappropriate comment because that makes me uncomfortable," and then they repeat that action, that constitutes harassment to me. So,
yeah, or like, okay, so the producer, you're saying they're in your trailer when you're changing, and you're like, if you wouldn't mind just turning around so I have some privacy, and then the next time you look up at them, they're facing you.
Correct.
That's not good.
And that is well, what you're coming up with is actually what's really important is that I do believe that the preponderance of her claims paint a very solid picture that she was in a toxic environment
and was routinely disrespected and
was made to feel uncomfortable even after, and even especially after, voicing those concerns to Wayfarer and to Sony. So I do believe that she was harassed. I don't believe that the harassment was criminal. I don't believe the harassment was egregious to the extent that it should stop production. I don't think it necessarily means that people are bad people to have such claims made against them. They could be careless and do that. Do you know what I mean? So there's all, and the reason I'm telling you all this is because if Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, or anybody else in Wayfarer or on that set were doing things like creating discomfort for people, but they were doing so unintentionally, meaning that that they're not misogynists, that they're not a problem, then if those claims were put forward, then they would have done everything to make sure that those claims were remedied, that right. Everybody everybody's voice was heard, that they had a system in place to make sure that right. People that felt safe. But that's not what happened.
But like in the trailer example, like she was like, I gave this guy a clear directive and he ignored it and didn't think it was a big deal. And that's why she had to like elevate it, That's why she talked to Sony, and Sony was like, sorry, we're not the production company. You got to talk to Wayfarer. Like,
what do you mean about the trailer?
When he was trying to have a conversation with her.
We're talking about Blake, obviously, just to use...
Blake Lively, and I think it was Jamie Heath, where he was in her trailer and she was changing, and she was like, yeah, we can have this conversation, but would you mind turning around? And then he did, and then they continued talking, and then when she looked at him again, he was looking right at her.
Yeah, well, that's my point, right? So like when you take that situation, you say that's an isolated situation, right? Then you can like maybe even objectively say, not a big deal, it's, people's eyes. I mean, my eyes wander. I used to have this conversation with my former sister-in-law when we were laying on the beach in New Jersey, how it doesn't matter how attractive or unattractive somebody is, my eyes immediately go to crotches. I look at all of the crotches. And we just had this whole laugh because she's like, I'm the exact same way.
I'm that way with butts, yeah.
Every bloody, it's just like all like eyes to crotch, doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, my eyes are on your crotch.
So weird.
Well, I'm bringing it up because I'm saying in an isolated incident, it could be just that he had a human moment.
Well, that was what his explanation was. And she was like, no, that doesn't really work in a professional workplace.
Well, where I'm going is
where I'm the employee and you are a boss.
Well, it can work in that situation. Again, that's another situation where if something is uncomfortable, we'd be like, absolutely, I'm mortified that I made you feel uncomfortable. That was just like my eyes just doing what my eyes do. I apologize. I should have, next time I'll just stay outside of the trailer while you're doing that and I'll make sure you're comfortable. Like I would just step in the way of my mistake.
It's just not the sort of thing to brush off when you're talking about a nude woman who
absolutely
works for you.
Never.
It's just like, it's not like oh, sorry, my mistake. Like, no, that's nudity. And that's something that everybody knows is like a real taboo thing to disrespect.
So if you have a situation where there's discomfort and then that discomfort isn't remedied, then you have now you see there's a problem. See where there was an offense, which can be passive, which can be just accidental, entirely accidental and unintentional. But when you don't have remedies to those problems, or when you don't have remedies to those offenses, that's when you realize there's an actual problem. And that's when they tried to get Sony involved. And then when Sony said, you got to take care of this, Wayfarer, and then Wayfarer again failed at creating a workplace that people felt safe in and comfortable in, then the harassment claims became real. Then comes the question. So for me, her harassment claims are completely legitimate. They, again, are not agreed. They were not egregious complaints. They were not complaints that should have toppled somebody's career. They certainly shouldn't have, ruined his reputation whatsoever, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You can gain some reputation about it. Man, his set's a little junky or whatever. But like the idea that it should have ruined him, I would say absolutely, completely not. But the retaliation is another level. And the way in which he kind of appears to have gotten so tilted over what was going on that he got engaged with these people, Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, then Melissa Nathan, I think demonstrates I think that's the moment, that's like the sort of the ground zero moment where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in that moment when he engaged in that moment.
Blake Lively has the strongest evidence of retaliation. Because a lot of people that are defending Justin Baldoni are saying, well, there's no proof that the smear campaign was executed, even though they discussed it. Well, they're not even allowed to discuss it. One of her causes of action in her lawsuit is conspiracy. So that he was directing his publicist to invent negative stories about her, and that his publicists were accepting those conversations and then proposing ways in which they might be able to form a package that might satisfy him and his needs. That's all of that is evidence, and it's unrefuted, and that is what's going to make it so that she wins her case. And
the biggest problem with all of that is the nature of his retaliation. His idea of retaliation is to try and ruin this person's career. That's where it's like another level of problem for me. And I do believe. And it wasn't in self-defense either. People are claiming that it was self-defense, but there was nothing he was defending himself against. If he admits that there were problems on the set, so it's not disputed that somebody had some complaints and that he admits in writing, I'm going to change my behavior moving forward. And so that's not something to retaliate for. That's not something to defend yourself from. I mean, there's no reason for retaliation almost ever. Right. And his idea of retaliation was to destroy her career. And I truly believe that's what he intended to do, to destroy her reputation, to discredit her. I'll tell you this, I don't believe that he believed it was going to be that successful. I don't think he could have imagined that this woman's career was on the brink of like that there could be this much damage. Like it's like napalm. That astroturfing campaign was really successful. And look, she didn't help herself, and I've said this from the very beginning. Like she kind of made a bunch of faux pas throughout her like way up that came back to haunt her in this situation because he got the right people involved, who could turn the right knobs and get the right people to be so irate about this
Right,
woman.
but just because she's an easy target doesn't mean she's not a target.
No, 100%.
You know?
It just explains how big it became and how it was like. Because here's what I believe. I believe that he was just trying to mitigate. I thought he was like, hey, we'll put this out there. We'll be like, no, Blake, live is the problem, and there'll be some balance to this.
He said, I want to.
Oh, that's right.
He wants to know that she can be buried.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting.
Well, so because here's the thing, it's like one of the lowest hanging fruit.
That's so upsetting.
I know. One of the lowest hanging fruit things you can do if you're being accused of wrongdoing, what you can do is just do ad hominem attacks, where you're like, oh, this person who's accusing me is not credible, so you can't believe their accusations,
right.
or this person that's accusing me is a bad person. They did crimes before in their past, right?
Yeah.
All of those things are attacking the accuser and not the accusation. It completely deflects off of them and the accusation. So you're no longer talking about what the person is claiming. You're talking about whether they're capable of claiming the thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what he was intending to do. He wanted to know that her reputation could be buried. And the reason why his publicists were so secretive about it, and how they kept putting, unbelievably, they kept putting in writing that they can't put it in writing. And that they have to make sure that it's untraceable, and they have to make sure it looks organic, is because they knew that they were making themselves liable for a lawsuit with their behavior,
right,
with their choices, with their work.
Delicate, who always contributes to this type of the conversation and does so very well, is talking about how like a bystander could be offended by a sexual joke, and that could be considered sexual harassment. Yeah. This is just like the important thing to remember. Right. And the reason why I love that example, and I think she's brought that one up before in our chat, is that I love that example because it was a joke. It like was something that could have been completely innocuous in the person's mind, right? Like in their own mind, they might be like, oh, this is nothing. It's benign. It's just me making a joke. It doesn't even have it's not, laden with, their own personal subtext. It's just a joke.
That's always the go-to. Also, when you've offended somebody, you'd be like, "Oh, well, I was just joking," which means you're too sensitive. That's
not what I'm talking about. See, what Delicate is talking about is that you can say a joke and have the intention of just telling a joke,
right,
and not realize that your joke, even if that joke isn't so wildly offensive, it doesn't have to be some kind of wildly offensive joke. Do you know what I mean? It can just be enough to be offensive to somebody else, right? It can have underlying themes that are offensive. It's just like these kinds of, harassment is a very subjective thing. And, look, I mean, it's not up to us to judge whether or not harassment is, one thing or another. It's up to the people who receive those complaints to handle them and to handle them appropriately, to come to an assessment of like the level of offense here, so that you know whether or not there needs to be further action rather than just the conversation of, please be mindful of the things that you say in the presence of others. Or please be mindful of the things that you do in the presence of others. Please do not continue down, these paths of conversation, et cetera, right? Typical, easy to handle stuff. Somebody, Maria Tanny K. Swoop says, I saw comments and videos that was from the way back from before when the movie was made and the making, saying that no one liked Blake as a Lily and disliked Colleen Hoover as well as Justin. Well, so it's just so interesting because, well, first of all, like conversations about her not being right for Lily is just like it's like I don't think that's,
people are pointing that out to discredit the allegation of a smear campaign.
Right.
They're like, oh, is she gonna say that all of this criticism of her being too old for Lily or her being overweight in her dress or whatever, are they gonna say that this is part of the smear campaign?
Well, I was about to say
and
that
the answer is like, no, she's gonna say that the smear campaign started when the evidence shows that Justin Baldoni started it, which is in early August of 2024.
Yeah.
Like that's when it started, because we can see.
I brought this up before on this live, but it's a perfect example for all of us who loved Interview with the Vampire. When the movie got announced and it was Tom Cruise announced to play Vampire Lestat, almost all of us screamed inside. I knew nobody who loved that book who got excited about Tom Cruise.
But he ended up nailing it, right? And everybody
not in my opinion, no.
Oh, I thought that a lot of people think that he nailed it, but that Brad Pitt kind of phoned it in.
Well, I felt completely opposite. I felt like Brad Pitt was well portrayed as Louis, although Louis had definitely more depth in the book, but it's Brad Pitt.
See what I mean?
But look, the point I'm obviously making is that not liking somebody for a role or in a role happens all the time. George Clooney got it for Batman, and somebody else for Batman. Val Kilmer got it for
Every
Batman.
Batman gets it.
No, that's not true. Christian Bale was hailed as the ultimate Batman, and everybody loves the OG Michael Keaton. So people land roles and people don't like people in roles. It's just the way it goes, especially when there's IP involved. But that certainly wouldn't have anything to do with her actual reputation in the world at all. And we know this because we know that the movie made just under $400 million in the box office. So we already know that despite the fact that people thought that she was poorly cast as Lily, which, isn't wrong necessarily. I mean, Lily was a 24-year-old and you have this woman in her mid-30s playing the role. That's definitely a total different dynamic and can change, certainly alter. And yes, you're right. Colleen Hoover did get a huge... it was wild, man. I had just joined TikTok and I was going through Book Talk because I was going to be releasing my book and I was like, I'm going to get to know Book Talk a little bit. So I was just looking at hashtag Book Talk. And at the time that I logged in, it was flooded with people who were absolutely destroying Colleen Hoover. They were burning her damn books.
Yeah.
They
I
were
remember this.
They were like a stack of Hoover books. I don't know how many books she's written, but it was like 4 or 5 books or something, and they were just like ablaze and like ripping covers off. And I still don't know why.
There's a level of fame that you reach where you experience the blowback, where you oversaturate the market, and then everybody becomes a hater. Not everybody, obviously. She had fans that were
no, but there's the fallout or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, but and look, it's so weird. This property has this so Colleen Hoover before the movie came out, Colleen Hoover had this massive, what do they call it? Blowback? You called it a blowback?
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that word, blowback. There's another word. It doesn't matter. This massive fallout. Backlash. Thank you. That's the fucking word. I don't know why they leave you. So Colleen Hoover has this big giant fucking backlash. This was before the movie. So there's this giant backlash. All of the people hate her. They can't stand her, whatever. This book, it ends with us. It starts with us. Just massive, huge, giant sellers, right? Bestsellers. And interestingly, that as it ends with us was being marketed, it was under scrutiny for being insensitive. What do they call that? Tone deaf.
Yeah.
Because they made a coloring book, and this is before, Wayfarer. This is before Sony. This is before Blake Lively. The publisher and the marketing companies, they made a coloring book to go with the promo, and everyone was like, "What are you talking about? This is a domestic violence, movie, and you're making fucking coloring books, you insensitive jerks." And so they were criticized for that, for being tone deaf, and the book still went on to do all this, like gazillions of dollars. Parallel to the movie, or just cut to the movie, and the same exact thing. They're tone deaf for their marketing techniques, including her Betty Boos and whatever else. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. And her hair Carolina.
Brown. And in reality, not in reality, the same thing happened. It just went and blew up. This movie has these weird dichotomies, like Blake Lively and Colleen Hoover in total separate incidences on the same exact property have complete fallouts with the world. Like there's something metaphysical in this thing, and like the whole world's in a fever over it.
There's some sort of this property has some sort of curse on it or something.
There's something on it, bro.
Where it gets huge, and then there's some sort of destruction that happens as a result of that pinnacle, right?
Some fucking Plutonian,
yes. Some destructive
curse
fall, like Icarus. I don't know.
It's not. It's not even Icarus because there's no hubris in here.
No,
this is just
true.
Yeah, man.
The Wheel of Fortune turns.
The Wheel of Fortune turns. It actually has more, that's way more relevant. Like the Wheel of Fortune turns because it's this whole thing where it was like massive fortune and then absolute just total disaster follows.
Yeah, I mean it prevails though, right? That movie did really well. It ends with us.
Well, so I'm saying it was massive success, but then it ends up this. Here we are. 100% everybody gives that box office back.
There's some sort of issue that happens, but it ends up being okay in the end. She sells a gazillion books, and the movie makes a gazillion dollars.
I wonder if Blake Lively is going to write a book.
I hope so.
What if she beats him and like maybe she's writing, like memoiring this right now. Give me a call. I'll help you with the dialogue.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about how I remember when this happened, I wanted to talk about it on the live, but it never came up. Brian Friedman tried to assault another attorney during a deposition. Do you remember
So this is in the filings.
Yes, this is in the filing today. So now it has been submitted as as an exhibit in today's filings by Gottlieb.
That he uses these violence and intimidation tactics during depositions.
During depositions.
Yeah, so they want to keep a close, like a tight leash on this dude.
The reason why it was submitted today was because they're trying to figure out the venue for the depositions, and Gottlieb wants to have it at his law offices because they have security. And they want security because not only are all of Baldoni's fans rabid, like there was already, that lady in Texas who was like protesting at Blake Lively's film premiere.
Yeah.
So they're expecting protesters, but also Brian Friedman had lashed out and was violent with somebody. So do you want to hear the story? It's interesting because it's started to get. I remember when the story broke, I read all of the details about it. But then just all I can find now is like TMZ saying that the sources are saying it's BS. So he's using his PR machine to spin the narrative on his own screw up, Brian Friedman.
Yes. Sorry, I got distracted by cosmic courtesies, but yes, it's the craziest thing. It's this whole they bait and switch everything, it seems, or go ahead and read it. They
just like deleted it from a bunch of news sites. So now I'm on this like teeny tiny little website where I found more information about it. According to Hale, which is the other attorney, the incident occurred on June 23rd during a discussion about Vin Diesel is Brian Friedman's client.
Yeah, and there's a whole. This is So this is during this deposition for that case.
They were discussing his unavailability for a scheduled deposition, which is like no big deal. Friedman reportedly entered the room, refused to explain Vin Diesel's absence. He called the other attorney, Hale, a moron, and then escalated the situation by rushing toward him and using a slur. He called him the P slur.
Prick?
No. Worse.
Oh, pussy? He called him a pussy? Misogynist, fucking representing misogynists, man.
Hale, the other attorney, said Friedman raised his fist but stopped short of physical contact. Behavior Hale viewed as intimidation. Yeah.
Oh, I would love for that guy to fucking raise a fist in my direction, man. I would take care of that business.
A source close to Friedman strongly denied the accusations, telling TMZ that Hale was actually the aggressor. Darvo, dude.
Darvo. Yeah. That's all they are.
It's Darvo.
That's all they are.
Amazing.
Bunch of fucking Darvos. Yeah, so that was filed, but that's filed to the judge in order for them to, put a short lease on this guy, and especially regards to security. I will tell you though, in my depositions, it was like this. We wanted our deposition at our office too, because nobody wants to go to the other guy's house. Everybody wants to, them to come to my house. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But typically it's going to be the venue is going to be Friedman's venue. So I doubt that they're going to win.
He's conducting the deposition, so it would be at his law office.
So there's going to be only two options typically, unless they could both agree on a third party or like a third party venue, like a hotel, a Four Seasons or something. But if they weren't going to do that, and they might actually end up in a neutral spot where there's like easy access where they can avoid, if the concern is that there's going to be a crowd of people outside ready to pull her hair out or something, maybe there's a way to get her in through the back door at one of these other offices or whatever it is. I think the judge is probably going to be like, yo, you got to get your own fucking security. That's how this is how we roll, bro. Right. Like, you want security, get security. That's, you got plenty of money for that. So the judge, I don't think, is going to fall for the security issues. I think that the judge is going to say it's going to be at Friedman's house or unless they agree to have it at your house, and that's it. And so, but Friedman's going to control the venue.
Can we talk about what the hell is Brian Friedman's problem?
With life or?
I just feel like, okay, so he's a professional, and I know that he's like he's overworked and he's stressed out. But I feel like if you saw somebody that you knew, like in their professional setting, lash out like that, wouldn't you be concerned about them?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's exactly the sort of thing that makes somebody like take a loved one to the doctor and get their head checked. Like, usually people report like, oh yeah, right before they diagnosed my brain tumor, I had really aggressive outbursts.
I was holding my fist up to my children.
I was like threatening my coworkers, you know, like he's doing. Like, what's the matter with him? He's also doing things like, you know, like we all thought it was kind of part of his plan, but what if it isn't? That he like went on Megyn Kelly and he said, yeah, we're absolutely going to
sue people into oblivion.
Well, no, after the case was dismissed, where he was like, yeah, we're going to refile those charges, and then they never did. Like, what if he's actually screwing up because there's something wrong with him?
Well, you'd think then that he'd get fired by now. I mean, if you have your like entire case in this guy's hands and you're just going to let him fuck up your whole opportunity, your whole.
Would he get fired? He's a partner in the law firm.
No, he would get fired by Baldoni.
Oh, right.
No, it's his law firm. I'm saying Baldoni's.
I don't know why they haven't fired him yet.
We lost our attorney midway through discovery.
I just feel like he's acting super weird. And maybe it's normal for him, but it's really weird behavior. And I just wonder whether we're going to find out that he's sick. You know? Isn't that strange? Why would he lunge at another attorney? Like, what? Like, what kind of...
Unbelievable.
Yeah. He's got a problem.
Truly unbelievable.
Anyway. I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for Brian Friedman, but I hope he's not sick, because that'd be really weird.
Cosmic Urgency is saying that Heath Ledger got it for Dark Knight until everyone watched The Gay Cowboy.
Got what? What's the context?
Cosmic Resistance is why I don't talk to my coworkers.
Yeah, because you might lunge at them.
Yeah.
With a raised fist that stops just short of punching them, like Brian Friedman. Fucking weirdo. Heath Ledger got it. Got what? Typecast? What were we talking about?
Heath Ledger got. Heath Ledger got it for Dark Knight. I guess.
When people thought he was miscast. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
Sorry.
He got it for Dark Knight.
I remember.
Until everyone watched.
Until everybody saw it, and he was like the best to ever do it.
And then and then he put in quotes like what some of the people were saying, the gay cowboy.
Oh yeah, okay.
He's gonna play the Joker.
Yeah. And he's gonna blow your mind, yeah.
And he ends up winning an Oscar. Posthumously, right? Didn't he win?
I don't know, I can't remember. Right now, Cabaret is on Broadway, and and apparently this Australian country singer is playing the MC. And people are losing their minds about how good he is.
Really?
Yeah, like he's just a guy who's just like this.
Who is he? Do you know?
He's just a recording artist. He's an Australian guy. He's a country singer, and
he's just ripping it.
And apparently he got this role to play the MC on Broadway, and they were like, he transcends.
Wow.
Isn't that neat?
Destiny.
So it's like the Heath Ledger thing. Like, you just never know what kind of talent people can pull out if you give them the opportunity, you know?
It's true, and if the doors keep on opening them, like Joseph Campbell said of people who follow their bliss, that the universe conspires to help them, that doors open that would have otherwise remained closed, and so if you've got this kind of life, if you're on this kind of trail where these doors are starting to fly open, and you don't have anybody throwing anything on your rails, there's just no knowing where the ceiling might be or where it might take us in terms of what we'll learn or grow or see.
But that role specifically is a really interesting one to excel at, because I haven't seen the play, but I was following it when it was they were doing this whole rerun of it.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking about it before the Tony Awards. Cabaret is...
Oh, it's Cabaret. Okay.
You know this story?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, the MC is like really this trickster god type character, Like
yes.
He really is like this...
His mercurial,
Yeah, but like he plays one thing and then it's revealed that he's this other thing, but the whole time you realize that he was just being super, super sinister, but he has to be able to play that he's not. And
yeah. He's really a shapeshifter.
Incredible challenge. Yeah, a shapeshifter type character.
But he's really a trickster... in a shapeshifter's body.
So neat.
Yeah, he's like a double archetype for sure.
So it must be such a huge challenge to play somebody like that, and that's awesome that he's doing it well. Anywho. Okay, do you want to hear more about this filing today?
Yeah, please more. Yeah, this is so fucking wild. There's a lot too, I think.
So apparently we also learned that Gottlieb, the lawyer for Blake Lively, is telling the court that they received 150 hours of film footage that was produced without any audio.
Why?
And I had to ask Dale because you're a filmmaker, and I was like, okay, well, on set, right?
They're syncing on set.
The video is filmed and the audio is recorded, and then those are combined in post-production. And so I was like, okay, well, it seems like it would be an honest mistake if they were like produce footage and then they would just run off that file, but it wouldn't include the audio unless they specifically asked for it. But you're saying that there's no way they could have made that mistake.
They were syncing on set. Every day was synced the same day. There's probably no. It's absurd. It's absurd.
Okay.
Yeah, it's utterly absurd.
I didn't know.
Like the first thing that happens, the very first thing that happens.
So you're saying they had to remove the audio before they sent 150 hours?
No, what I'm saying is that what they said was, and I think somebody on Reddit even mentioned this, that it was more like, what do you call it? What did they call it on Reddit?
Oh, malicious compliance.
Malicious compliance.
Where they're like, oh, well, they asked for footage.
They asked for footage.
Let's just give them footage.
So we'll give them the footage.
They didn't ask for audio, so they won't get any audio.
If they were filmmakers, they would have known they should have asked for video and audio synced. Sync
That's how much
footage.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds actually know about movies.
So that's what I think it was. I think it was malicious compliance. I think they were just like, okay, fuck you. You asked for footage. Footage is what you'll get, because there is going to be a bin, of just the raw footage. But literally, what happens in today's production world is you shoot, and editors are syncing right that day. They're syncing that day, those dailies.
Maybe the subpoena was for raw, not raw footage
on set.
No, but maybe they specified unedited footage because they didn't want them to like pick out the parts they don't want to be seen.
Yeah, again, so if malicious compliance.
So it's impossible that it was an honest mistake, that they were like, oh, you wanted unedited footage, and so we gave you unedited footage. You didn't ask for audio, so there's no audio.
That would be malicious compliance. That would still fall in that beautiful title of malicious compliance, because it's a fucking lawsuit. They want the audio, and
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they want the audio. They're not just sitting there like looking frame by frame to see what the physical gestures are.
Yeah, without any sound.
Yeah, I mean, unless there was like an actual physical crime that was committed, that never happened. So no, they're being shitty, 100%. Cosmic Urgency said that malicious compliance sounds like a 90s erotic thriller. So, Richard Gere and Kim Basinger in malicious compliance, with Demi Moore playing the evil vixen.
What was that? What was that movie with Steve Martin?
The movie with Steve Martin. Not LA Story. What are you talking about?
Oh man.
What movie? A movie with Steve Martin. He's been in 100 fucking movies.
I know.
What was that movie with that guy, Steve Martin?
I was saying that it should be a sequel to this one, but it's
Planes, Trains, and My...
I loved this movie when I was a kid, so let me just look this up. The Dog Has Awoken.
That's not the movie. It's The Dog. It Has Awoken.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh,
Malicious Compliance sounds like a sequel to Dirty Rotten Scoundrels to me.
That's pretty funny.
I was obsessed with that movie. It came out when I was 6.
Do you want to do some comments on TikTok?
Yes, and I also want to tell you, there's so much more to tell you about this filing today.
We should probably do some of the comments by now on TikTok. I think TikTok has not been getting the love. And we got Daisy in the house, by the way. She's fucking badass. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. I did, but I didn't. You guys are such fun. It's crazy how much of a good time it is to hang out with you guys and talk all this shit.
I love the lore that Jerry Swindoll has been missing ever since he was in Don's Farm. And you guys know what happened.
Where's Jerry Swindoll? We know what you did with him, or that you did something.
Jessica said she saw Small Group and really liked it.
Oh, really?
Not usually a fan of Christian movies, but this one was pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's nice of you to say.
It's not the movie that Dale would have written.
I'm not a fan of Christian movies either. In fact, I think I've only watched that one and The Last Temptation of Christ, and well, maybe I've seen a few. The Ten Commandments, badass.
It was kind of funny that how many times you would come back from your note session and you'd be like, today, it was another day of like telling the screenwriter, like, no, you can't say that. Dude, you cannot say
one of the
that.
funniest small group notes was we were sitting at a cafe. In the writer director is a guy called Matt. He was very frustrating to work with. because he didn't know what he was doing, but at the same time, and he was a first-time writer, which is cool.
He wanted to put everything.
But he would dig his heels in on some of the worst shit. Like, he was writing, like, really racially insensitive stuff.
Yes, like, really bad jokes.
Like, really racially insensitive
and
stuff.
Like,
and I'm like,
not going to produce a movie that has that in there.
No fucking way, bro. And then he also revealed that Santa wasn't real in a family movie, bro. In a Christian family movie.
He had his characters making jokes about how Santa's... No.
How Santa's not real. And then,
well, you're saying it.
So I'm sitting there. It doesn't matter. I'm on my live. This is not the same thing. So I'm not fucking marketing to Christian families. These are Christian families who wake up every morning. Good morning. Yeah, Santa was here. They lie to their children. It's a part of their whole fucking thing. So I'm sitting there and I'm arguing with him about it.
You're like yelling at him. Like
he's resisting. I'm like, Matt, you can't fucking tell their families. You're turning them into liars in front of them. They're going to be let's watch this new Christian movie. And you're like revealing Santa isn't real. Do you know how much of a problem that is? And this lady sitting 2 tables over looked over and went, excuse me. And Matt looked over at her and he's like, he's right. And my daughter is in the bathroom right now. Like, shut up to me, she said.
Yeah, like, are you gonna finish
She's like, you're doing it right now. You're doing it right now.
Back?
Anyway, small group was like, I'll tell you what was interesting about small group, because for me, I was just trying to help some filmmakers, and a guy promised me some things that he didn't actually come through with, but whatever. I wanted to help him out because he promised me these things. And I was able to produce that movie. But what was really cool is that it was the first time I ever shot internationally. So I got to go shoot in Guatemala, which was a really good time. Because after it was all over, I went into the jungle with a bunch of crew members and the lead actor, Sterling Hurst, and actually one of the executive producers of Too Real, the podcast. He was there, and we were fucking drinking so much tequila and running through a crazy, wild, ancient Aztec jungle. Is it Aztec? I can't remember now.
Oh, I don't
Mayan
know
or
either.
I can't remember if they were Mayan or anyway.
Okay. Back to the chat, right?
Yes.
Is it premature?
Yes, please. Okay. No, that was fun.
Jacqueline is asking, so everyone who's on Baldoni's side doesn't read?
No, I'm sure that there are some people who was on Baldoni's side that reads. Did they read the documents involved with this case? That I can't fucking tell you.
Also, I don't know that everybody on Baldoni's side is reading critically, because they're like, for instance, you guys were on Baldoni's side. They were buying some of the stories that Brian Friedman had described in his filing, in his lawsuit, and then he would have the evidence, but the evidence like directly refuted what he said the evidence was going to say. Like multiple times it was like literally lying about what was in the evidence and then showing the evidence. It's like that you guys didn't catch that. I don't know how.
It's literally like exactly. I can't tell you how many times I'm running into people who are pro-Baldoni and who want to talk about Baldoni, and they have not read. They don't know what's going on. They don't have the actual facts. And they claim to. They scream stupidity about it.
It's fine if they don't, but when they claim to, that's the problem.
And they claim all these stupidities, like he was thrown in a basement, or that she like took over the film. I go on a rant. I'm going to publish it tonight. I go on a rant about it because everyone talks about how Blake Lively arrested control of this movie from Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer, and nobody talks about how Justin Baldoni lost control of the movie. Like nobody, the dialogue is all switched to this. It didn't happen in a vacuum. Evil. It didn't happen in a vacuum, and as I pointed out before, and I'll point it out again for you in this conversation, Sony was, we'll say, for lack of a better term, it's not so like cut and dry, but Sony was basically on Wayfarer's side in the beginning of all this. They agreed with Wayfarer to not give Blake Lively a producer credit, and instead give her only an executive producer credit.
At the start, yeah.
That was at the beginning. When Blake Lively lodged her complaint and also lodged concerns about other complaints that she knew about being filed against Wayfarer to Sony, Sony deferred those back to Wayfarer, again, kind of putting their trust into Wayfarer to settle these problems. Because remember, Sony is this big giant corporation. They're not, sexual harassment claims is not something new to any giant corporation. Like we've said earlier in this talk, you guys can, we can say something that's sexually offensive on this live, for example, and you can decide that it's offensive to you. I mean, this is entertainment, so it's a little bit different in terms of rules. But if we're in like a workplace, right? If particularly, this isn't a workplace, obviously, but if we were in a workplace and I said something that was inappropriate, or I showed somebody a picture that was, racy and inappropriate, that would constitute harassment in the workplace. And so it's not really about like whether or not you agree with it or not. It's whether or not somebody felt like they were being harassed or being subjected to something that made them feel uncomfortable and potentially unsafe.
I've seen this one brought up a lot, and it's so interesting to me. Okay, Jacqueline is disagreeing with us on all things and bringing up a bunch of points. But this one, the joke, are you speaking about that, about like the time Blake made fun of Baldoni's nose? So this is during the dance scene that he released to show that he wasn't sexually harassing her.
Right. When he horny growled into her ear. Yeah.
A lot of people are saying that she made fun of his nose, and so she was being mean in that scene or something. Is he suing her for that? Did he complain about that? Like, if she made fun of his nose and he was offended by that, did he do anything? Like, is that relevant to this case? What is the relevance of her? If she did say that, does that mean that he didn't sexually harass her? Like, I'm not really sure why we're whataboutism, playing these whataboutism games about what Blake Lively may have done in a different scene, or whether she did something during a scene where she's alleged that he acted improperly. If she also acted improperly, then it's on him to complain about it. But instead, a bunch of people online are complaining about it, and we don't hear that from him. Exactly. Like this thing about when she did that Forbes interview, and she was talking about how she sometimes how she used to take a job and then she had great ambitions that she wanted to be able to express. So she would take a job as an actor and then try and work her way up, or have some sort of influence, or work with somebody on set and like show them what she's capable of, right?
Yeah.
She goes on to explain in that same answer that that's something she used to do, and now she's really forthright about what she wants to do from the very beginning. And a lot of people made a big deal out of what she said when that video started getting shared everywhere, but none of that is anything that the Baldoni side is alleging. In their lawsuit, they say that she was forthright at the very beginning. The very first meeting that she had with them when she signed onto the project, she told them very clearly, I want to be a producer. I want to be an executive producer or a producer, and I want to have creative input. They have that in their own filing. So it's like there's so many people on Baldoni's that are supporting Baldoni that are coming up with these stories that he's not even alleging. Everybody's just inventing this wrongdoing that she did that he doesn't even seem to have a problem with, or nobody on Wayfarer is talking about.
Well, it's because people expound on like rumors. So the rumor was that, she wrested control of the film from Justin Baldoni, leveraging all these different things, and
he's saying the
poisoning
opposite.
The relationship.
He's saying that she wanted to be a producer in the very first meeting, and everybody who's supporting him is saying that she started as an actress and then decided she wanted to be a producer and took control of everything. Like, he's not saying that.
But that's not how this works. They're being told to speak, right? We have Brian Friedman, we have Jennifer Abel, we have Nathan, we have the dude in Texas, we have all these publicists and all these people whom they employ to go out and execute a gaslighting propaganda campaign to completely negate that.
Is my point.
And we know that they do that even in their own document, their own goddamn document, where they literally say that Blake Lively was holding out on the cut of the trailer in order to leverage that to get into the editing room to make some more changes to the film, and then they followed that up with evidence that absolutely told the exact opposite of that story, and in fact instead said that she had completed the trailer, that they had all signed off on the trailer, that she was on the phone with Taylor Swift attaching the Tears of Reconciliation song to the trailer, a massive producing.
She was working extra hard to improve the value of their movie that she was not going to profit off of, that she wasn't going to get any more control over, and she wasn't getting paid more for her work. And this is what I'm saying, like, all of these allegations that everybody's farming with each other, like sharing with each other, they're incoherent. Like, Baldoni and his lawyers are not making these arguments because they can't make these arguments because they make no sense. That she started as an actress and she tried to wrest control by becoming a producer? No, they're not even making that argument. They know that she wanted to be a producer on day one. Like, it's just so weird. You guys are just, and this is why I'm saying, like, okay, fine, you guys read, but you're not reading critically, right? You're not thinking about whether these things line up, whether it matches up. Like there was the Forbes interview was a teeny tiny little clip that's so clearly edited. in that little clip that everybody shared online, you didn't hear the question that was asked. You didn't hear her breath before the sentence that you were shown, and you didn't hear her breath after the sentence the last sentence you were shown. That's obviously cut from the middle of an answer, and nobody went to go find it. Well, we did. We went and found her answer, and we saw that what you guys got was the middle of a sandwich, and the rest of the sandwich completely clarified everything. And what it clarified was that Blake Lively agrees with everybody that the way that she used to do it was the wrong way, like everybody's saying. And
well, let me disagree with her. Let me disagree with you. Let me disagree with everybody, because I am the very same person who would do that. I have the very same any dude who shows up on a set. I've said this before, and I'll say it again and again and again, because I've been on enough sets to see it happens on a regular basis, meaning almost every single set that ever happens. You're going to find people who are going to try and improve their station within a production.
Yeah, because they're ambitious.
They're ambitious, and they want to move up the ladder.
Yeah.
They want to become producers. They want to become co-producers, associate producers. They start as PAs, and they move their way up, and that's how it goes. Sometimes you're moving up within it's like getting your black belts or your various degree belts in martial arts. You roll and you go through the class, and then they give you a belt after you graduate. Maybe you take a test. These guys and gals are working on these sets, and they're faced with these tests every day in the way in which they're solving problems or adapting to their jobs, and they move up. And it doesn't stop at like PA. It doesn't matter where you are. If there's a place to move up in an organization, there are going to be people who want to move up into those roles, and that includes people who are rich and famous like Blake Lively. So that Blake Lively was showing up on these sets and wanting to be more than an actor and not telling people up front doesn't mean anything, because if I did that, all I'd get is praise for it. I'd be talked about how ambitious I am and how resourceful I am and how much I'm contributing and how much
advice that they ever give anybody who's starting out in film is get on a set and try and work your way up. That's the advice. They're like, get on the set, work as a PA.
It's the advice that you get in life. It's you got to get in. You just got to get in, and then you work your way up from there.
Yeah.
So this idea that she and the idea that
she wasn't saying it was wrong. She was just saying it was ineffective, and so now she's forthright.
This is exactly right. I mean, she used the words, "It feels like the rug is pulled out from under them," and what she's really describing there isn't the fact that they were betrayed by her. What she's describing is that they couldn't fathom the idea that this actor could bring these other credentials, these other opportunities, these other bits of experience and contributions to the production. That's what she's talking about. The rug pulled out from under them is them going, "Oh, what? I'm sorry, I just wasn't expecting you to talk to me about this."
Because we don't know ambitious women in our line of work.
It's not that she was doing something that was offensive.
She's complaining about the same exact thing that Charlize Theron was complaining, and that she's doing promo for her newest movie now, and
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, she was saying the same thing.
She's saying the exact same thing, and it's going on. As a matter of fact, it's on my notes for today, and I'm going to bring it up right now, just since we have everybody here talking about this, because there's another one that just came out with a very similar claim. Let me pull it up real quick. You can continue while I look it up, Angela. But I'm going to try to pull this up just because it's like it's so prevalent in Hollywood. Like what this problem that Charlize Theron is talking about, this problem now that obviously Blake Lively is brought up. There's another actor who just brought this up. But she wasn't
even complaining about it. She was just navigating it, right? She was
exactly.
like, okay, well, this didn't work for me. Let me try another tactic.
Like women do.
Yeah, totally. And so that's what she was trying to do with this in this situation too. And that's just my point is that everybody made a scandal out of something she said as in defense of Justin Baldoni, but it literally is not material to the case whatsoever. And it's like he didn't complain about that. They were completely clear in their own filing. And Brian Friedman wrote that she in her first meeting said she wanted to be a producer.
Yes.
So she's not rug pulling.
And
I don't know what this allegation is even.
He actually put, and not only that, but he put in that she wanted to be a producer. He put in that they said no, and that Sony agreed with Wayfarer that she would be an executive producer. And by the way, they're doing that because they want to set the stage for her being this aggressive person who didn't take no for an answer, which is just absolutely absurd.
Well, but then they include 14 pages of Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively texting each other, having a total love connection in collaboration. They're working together so well. They're super happy before they start shooting. Right. Before she actually gets onto his set, everything's going well, and they're collaborating and they're doing it happily.
Yeah.
So it's like there was no problem. It's that people want to make this out to be some sort of scandal that he's not even alleging there is. It's just a waste of everybody's time. And I just hope that everybody recognizes how manipulated they're being.
Well, they don't. Most don't. I wonder. We'll see. Twilight director, that's who I was talking about. So Twilight director, her name I don't know. But obviously it is a woman, and she says that the studio gave her a mini cupcake to celebrate her film's success, while male directors get cars or 3-picture deals or really whatever they fucking want. Like I'm adding the fucking. This is what I'm paraphrasing her quote, but
she's not serious. They didn't give her a mini cupcake.
This is the quote. Cupcake. She quote a mini cupcake.
Figuratively?
She didn't even get a whole cupcake.
Is she speaking figuratively?
You know how easy it is to give somebody a whole cupcake?
No way.
Anybody
would be offended by it.
It's in quotes. I don't know if it's an actual real thing. Like, hey, congratulations, here's a cupcake.
Yeah, I know, but that is interesting. They're like, they gave her like a spa day instead.
But it's not about whether or not it's an actual cupcake or whether it was the equivalent of a cupcake or tantamount to a cupcake, but rather that what she's pointing out is this disparity, which I know exists. In Hollywood, and it's always there. You know, the one thing that men don't deal with in Hollywood that women have to deal with every single day, and this is like Blake Lively's life, is when you hit that mid-30 mark, you become absolutely, like, completely undesirable to half of fucking Hollywood producers immediately. And so unless you've won Oscars or been in that conversation time and again, your roles are going to start dwindling. They're going to take a nosedive like nobody's business. That's how it works in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's how this world, man, women get screwed up in that town. They do.
Okay, this is interesting. So Jacqueline is saying Blake is looking for footage to spin a narrative like she's been doing. Like she said,
Claire, I'll get to that. I'll get to your question in a minute, Claire.
Blake is looking for footage to spin a narrative like she's been doing. And then Daisy Maymom replies, this is correct. I agree with this too. Each party in a lawsuit has the right to review information from discovery before deposition.
Of course. If it's reasonable to believe that there's going to be whatever they're reviewing is going to be asked. Like, for example, if you're going to do a deposition and you're asking to see footage or you're asking to see something that's completely unrelated to your job, like you're the chauffeur driver or something, you know what I mean? You don't need to see the fucking footage. They'll be like, nah. But if whatever discovery they're asking for is relevant to your testimony, then you have to be able to review it.
People are also claiming that she shouldn't have to review the footage because she edited it.
Well,
she edited what they gave her. You know,
that's not what she's asking for.
She didn't have all
there's a difference between footage and raw footage,
and that was also like a year and a half ago, and all everything that happened since.
But there's a difference between what's been edited and what is footage. They just sent over 150 hours of footage that has no sound, so we already know that the movie is not 150 hours, right?
Yeah.
So we know that they're asking for that footage because they want to see if on that tape. You know, it's the same thing that happened in my lawsuit with Leonardo DiCaprio. In my lawsuit with Leonardo DiCaprio, Ethan Suplee shows up for his deposition. He is asked to provide discovery. Some of that discovery was that he took a video recording of our Christmas night, 1995, at Artie Rob's house where I was living. And on that night, Leonardo DiCaprio, he has this very sexually inappropriate event with this TV star, and Ethan Suplee recorded the whole thing. Well, our lawyers wanted that tape because this was Christmas 1995. They had made all these allegations that we had been keeping Don's Plum a secret from them, absurdly. And so our lawyers wanted to get that tape to see if on that tape there was any evidence at all of conversations between anybody talking about Don's Plum, which there very well probably was. But also on the tape would have also been this recording of Ethan Suplee filming Leonardo DiCaprio doing sexually inappropriate things with a big giant TV star. So he lost it, did Ethan Suplee. Like, he lost his shit.
Well, it should be clarified that the reason why you guys were seeking that video is because I
just did the whole explanation. We were literally seeking that video because we wanted to see whether or not anyone had been talking about Don's Plum, and only that there was no anticipation that the moment with
but that's why you
this
guys
actress
they were
was
seeking
gonna,
all recordings, all video, like home videos you guys made with each other, any audio recordings or anything like that. There was also Leo and Toby were trying to pretend like you guys never talked about it.
Right.
They were answering really, really strange questions.
Yeah, you weren't paying attention to me because I just went over all of that. But
No, I know.
I'm
Listen,
sorry.
so there was this one event where, like, the attorneys, when prepping for the depositions, are asking you guys all about, like, okay, so when did you guys hang out before, after you guys were already cutting it as a feature and everybody knew it was being edited as a feature, and then until the conflict that happened where Toby blew everything up.
Right.
And there was a really important event where Artie was going through a breakup, and Leo went and took him to go eat sushi.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they hung out and they talked about it on that day.
Sure.
And then, but during the deposition, Leo denied that ever happened. So they were denying that you guys ever even hung out, even just as friends. You know?
Yeah, it's so much
It's
absurd.
just absurd. I'm trying to erase you guys. Okay, do you want to hear more from the chat?
Yeah. There's somebody named Big Dinky there.
That's really funny.
Bragger.
Tallulah McGillicuddy said, I'm a lawyer and I have no idea what Friedman was doing for Baldoni. So dumb. I'm not pro either, but I have no idea why Friedman wouldn't just file for tortious interference with a contract, because that was his only possible cause of action against her.
And that's weak as sauce already, because like what interference would he have been able to approve, and where would the damages lie? Like, there's so many problems with that. The truth is that he didn't have any single case against her, and that's why the whole retaliation thing is a real problem for him, because and why she's obviously, and I'm talking to a lawyer here, but why she's obviously trying to get those correspondences between Freeman and the
content creators.
And the content creators, because they're alleging, and we saw this, that Brian Freeman was using the lawsuit, and they're filing, and that's why they did this separate filing. They didn't just do a countersuit. They got to play by their own rules. They created they got to hide under the guise of a lawsuit, and they got to continue this smear campaign and really take it to new heights. I mean, the hatred for this woman is just like, have you seen anything like it before? Like, if she wasn't already adorned with money and fans and beauty and children and everything else, who knows where she would land psychologically in this?
I know, right? If she was like struggling with depression or something, it'd
like
be horrible.
The hatred for her, I can't imagine. And
that's why you'll never see me like participate in something like that, because you just never know where people are.
That's why I got so mad at Andy Signor, and you can hear it when I'm shouting at him.
Bullying.
Why are you doing this? What are you getting out of this? You think she's like, because Blake Lively is to most people this thing on a TV screen, this thing on a movie screen, this thing on their phone, this thing on their internet, on their TV, on their computer monitor. So there's no human connection. They don't understand that this woman wakes up in the morning and she looks in the mirror and she feels the pain of what's going on around her. She didn't deserve any of this, and her alleging sexual harassment on the production is her fucking right. Like, if she's feeling bad, bro, she gets to say so. She gets to make the record. I got to tell you, bro, it's not that difficult to run a great set. It's really not. It's not.
No, because everybody's showing up for work and they want to have a good time.
It's really not difficult. You find out if there's somebody being a problem, you go shut that problem down. I did it multiple times on every set I've been on. You just shut it down. I remember the conversation I had with Leo after he flicked his cigarette at the boom operator. You just sit that situation down. You're like, hey, is it really going to be worth it to create and risk yourself to, potentially open yourself up to liability, to potentially screw up this whole production? Is that all worth it to you? So you have the conversation. It's a difficult conversation. It's Leonardo DiCaprio. He's lending me his time worth millions of dollars so that I can make a fucking movie. Who the fuck am I to scold him? But you've got to have control of your set. You got to have the conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, even if they're intimidating. And, that's not what happened on this set. What happened on this set is that the people who were in charge didn't have a hold of the reins. And that's why it's so frustrating to hear people talk about how she lost control, how she wrested control, when the reality is that the film, the people who were running the film lost control of the film. Of course, that's Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath. They lost control of the film. And she picked the pieces up. And you know why? Because she was vested into the film. She believed in the film.
Ariel McKay is in the chat on YouTube, says, just because she was up front doesn't mean she can't take over the movie. She was just a, in quotes, producer. But this goes to what you're saying. Like, that didn't happen in a vacuum. What do you mean she took over the movie? She took it over from whom? Because it's Sony and Wayfair's movie.
Correct.
Literally, like what is the literal description of her taking over the movie? How could that have happened? If two entities own it completely, how is she able to do anything? She doesn't have control. The only deduction anybody can make is like, okay, well, I guess that means that she like strong-armed Sony somehow.
Correct.
To get control, because Sony, so then Sony took over control from Wayfair in order to give it to Lively. Like, this is the thing that people, the leaps people make. But it's really...
that's not even a leap. That's how it would have to go.
Okay.
Like, in order for Blake Lively to wrest control of the film from Justin Baldoni, she would have to have a co-conspirator. And the only co-conspirator she could have would be Sony. So that would make Sony equally liable.
The only co-conspirator she could have, because there's only one other entity that could possibly control it.
Correct.
Not Blake Lively, but Sony or Wayfair.
Think about it as majority rules.
Yes.
Think about it as a majority rule situation. That's it. That's what we have here. We have a majority rule situation. So if a majority ruled at any given point, like they did when she asked for the producer credit at the beginning of the production, majority ruled. Sony said no. Wayfair said no. She didn't get the producing credit at the beginning.
That's right. This is how it goes. Okay, so just like follow along with this logic. If she wrested control from Justin Baldoni, from Wayfair, by extorting Sony to do it, can anybody explain why Sony is not even mentioned in any lawsuits?
Or why Sony then didn't sue Blake Lively, for example. What we do see from Sony is...
Justin Baldoni's not angry at Sony or any Sony executives. He doesn't even name them. But they're responsible? They're responsible for this huge scandal in his life?
What we know is that Sony praised the fuck out of Blake Lively for everything that she'd been contributing, from her work on the editing, from her work on, in the film itself, obviously her work, like her acting.
Yeah, she included those messages in her amended complaint.
But also her attachments, like Taylor Swift. I mean, giant contributions to the movie, all the way through post-production and to release. She followed their marketing plan. She contributed to it. Obviously, they hired Ryan Reynolds' company, which he owns. He doesn't run, and that company is a highly sought after marketing company in the world today in entertainment. It's not like
but they
weren't invented to.
It's like an advertising company like contracting out to a videographer to produce some content. It's like, it's not, they didn't run anything.
No, it happens all the time.
My question is, okay, so if Justin Baldoni had a big creative dispute with Sony that Blake Lively was involved in, right? And Justin Baldoni lost the creative dispute to Blake Lively or Sony, right? Because they're apparently working together really closely.
Right.
Why isn't Justin Baldoni suing Sony or naming or suing any of the executives that were involved in these decisions? And to me, that just screams that he is scapegoating her for creative decisions that he lost and he feels bad about. Yeah,
and I'm just adding to that, right? There's two things have to happen in order for this to complete. One of two things. Either Justin Baldoni has to sue Sony as being a co-conspirator in this wresting control of the movie and marginalizing him.
Right, yeah.
Or Sony has to have some kind of grievance or complaint, and there should be evidence that supports some kind of grievance or complaint against Blake Lively for what Blake Lively did in representing or misrepresenting Sony to Baldoni and to Wayfarer.
Right.
There has to be, so either way, and this is the important thing that everybody just completely seems to ignore. And we've been saying it from word one. I've been saying it from the very first video I watched on this fucking problem. Sony is the big player here. Sony is that nobody, and the only thing that you get out of Sony is support for Blake Lively. Shows you exactly that. This is a part of what people say, well, why do you believe Blake Lively over Justin Baldoni? Well, really the biggest reason is because Justin Baldoni didn't sue Sony.
That's right.
And Sony...
It makes no sense.
And Sony...
It cannot be.
endorses Blake Lively.
Yes.
And when you look at the trail, and when you actually put the hood up and you actually look at the motor here, you see what's making this thing run, you realize that Sony was first with Wayfarer, partnered with Wayfarer on this in a way that was closely tied, as you would in a situation where one is financing and the other is doing marketing distribution, both very equally financially high risk operations, right? So those two guys are proverbial guys are in bed together and they're fucking doing this thing, right? They're making this movie together.
Wow.
And the evidence of that is very clear. We're getting a lot of thunder if you don't hear it.
I know. I feel like your story should have a dark turn or something because you got this soundtrack happening.
So that Sony shifted to Blake Lively indicates that what really happened is that Wayfarer lost control of the movie, and at that point they need somebody to pick up control of that movie, and what they got was Blake Lively and Blake Lively's recommended producer whom they attached. So this is how this whole thing works in a more benign, less like emotional way.
So Sony was like, okay, Wayfarer is screwing up.
Right.
We need somebody to help us with this.
Correct. Well, they didn't actually want the producer to begin with, so they were like, if you recall,
they were like, we can't afford to have.
They didn't want to pony up for that producer.
Well,
but Blake Lively wisely said, "Hey, man, we got to pick up these pieces. If we add this producer, we add the dimensions that I need to be able to support this thing."
And this version of the story that you're saying,
yeah.
First of all, it just makes sense because we know who owns the movie, and none of those people are Blake Lively.
Correct.
She doesn't have control over anything.
Correct.
But another thing is, if you read Brian Friedman's that website that he put up, the lawsuitinfo.com or whatever, okay? I'm not sure if that's the exact address. But he put up that website where he put up a timeline where he has all of his evidence in the timeline.
Yeah.
And if you follow that timeline from the beginning all the way to the end, and you look for any time that Sony is having a discussion with anybody involved in Wayfarer,
yeah.
At first they're friendly and they're working with them, and mainly it's because of Jamie Heath. They start to get irritated.
Yeah.
Because Jamie Heath is not being the producer they need him to be.
Correct.
And pretty soon into post-production, you can see that Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath are no longer talking to Blake Lively, and it's just Sony executives who are talking to Blake Lively and then relaying back to Jamie Heath. Yeah. So it just their whole relationship
is a very degraded
severed.
Situation. Yeah, it's a
and
very
this
degraded.
is all before any of the promotion and stuff that maybe could have made Blake Lively into a persona non grata in the public. Okay. And so all of this just speaks to a severing and a lack of professionalism between from Wayfarer. The production company, Sony, is doing their best trying to hold it together. I don't know.
I hope you guys can hear this thunder, bro. It's something wicked this way comes.
It's really distracting me because I love thunderstorms.
So Jacqueline, nice to see you. Jacqueline says, so people who should really be upset with Sony for how Blake marketed the movie. And that's correct. Well, Blake didn't market the movie. Blake followed the marketing guidelines set forth by Sony. Here's the thing.
When she says, grab your girls and wear your florals, that is 2 weeks after Sony has already been having other people, like content creators on the internet who show up to theaters, and this other, like some promotional company in like India or something. They have marketing for It Ends With Us for 2 weeks already, using that exact tagline before Blake Lively states it. But for some reason, everybody's just assigned it to her as if it's hers.
So let me just clarify. Okay, so Sony that's what they do. They put out movies. That's what they are. They're a movie distribution company. Blake Lively is an actor. She does not distribute movies. Sony is invested in this movie. Sony is not going to defer the thing that they have been doing for 100 years to Blake Lively. That's never going to happen. That doesn't mean that they're not going to work in concert with Blake Lively, in concert with Colleen Hoover, in concert with Wayfarer and Justin Baldoni. And by in concert, I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not going to confer with them, meet and confer on different ideas, and then make decisions. And this is the important part. Sony's going to be a sponge for ideas. Anybody can bring, who's involved in the production, can bring ideas, marketing ideas, concepts. Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, any of the actors with prominent positions, any of the above the line folk, they can all kind of weigh in slightly or throw sort of a hat in, if you will. In the end, Sony's going to decide what they're going to go with. And that decision isn't made by a single person. It's made by a committee.
Yeah, this is interesting. So Plant-Based Pearls on TikTok is saying that she pressured the studio to use her cut and not his. It's the opposite direction. The studio needed a cut, right? They chose her to create the cut because they didn't like his.
Well, it doesn't go exactly like that.
Pressuring the studio to use her cut and not his.
Yeah, let me explain.
How do you think the genesis of that alternate cut? That was a studio cut, right? Not the director's cut?
Well, what happened in all likelihood, well, first of all, so just so you explain, Justin's cut was never going to be the final cut, ever, in all likelihood. In rare occasions, when a film studio will accept a director's cut as the final cut, it's because the studio agrees with all of the decisions that the director made in the cut. Oftentimes, and we know this because we see directors' cuts in movies, don't we? Have you ever seen Blade Runner's director's cut, it's fucking awesome.
They exist for the same reason, right?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that's a great example because Ridley Scott really didn't want that voiceover of what's his name?
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. So they didn't want Harrison Ford's voiceover, which I absolutely love. As a matter of fact,
But the studio wanted it.
the studio wanted the voiceover because they felt like the movie dragged too long without it. And so they felt like the narrative offered this depth to the storytelling that, his cut, the director's cut, Ridley fucking Scott, not Justin Baldoni.
Yeah.
Okay, Ridley Scott. His director's cut, it didn't have the same intrigue. It didn't maintain the engagement that they thought that the movie needed. So the studio obviously moved forward with their cut of the movie, and years later, Ridley Scott released the director's cut, and we all opine on it. Those of us who love that movie and who are filmophiles. What do we call ourselves? Cinephiles. What we called. So Justin Baldoni never had a cut. The studio always decides what cut goes forward, and the studio's decision.
He can feel jilted about that, right? He can be offended about that, but he's making it up that he was guaranteed anything, right?
Literally nobody. It's just so rare that a director's cut is granted to the director. It's almost never the case. Almost never the case. Biggest directors in the world. I spoke famously I spoke about the infamous case of Tony Kaye and History X, and because he put on such a public display by taking out full-page ads, begging the cast to take his side in an argument with Warner Brothers to put out his cut of American History X. He lost that embarrassment. He damaged his career practically irrevocably. He is still working, but he's never had the fame that somebody who created a movie as popular and as well received as History X was received. But he was just completely shunned by his own studio and by all those who supported him in the making of the movie because of the way he handled that situation. Directors don't get final cut. They just don't. The studio decides on the final cut, and the final cut is decided upon, again, by a committee. Oftentimes, they'll have executives from the distribution company, in this case Sony, come in and weigh in on that. They may even fire and hire new editors. In this case, it's fairly clear and apparent that Blake Lively took on the alternate cuts. She's the one who started dealing with the concerns that the studio had. And a lot of people want to jump right away, so I'm just going to jump right into it right now. A lot of people want to talk about how his version of the cut outscored Blake Lively's, but what they don't understand is that it's not the score alone that a studio decides on which cut goes out, because it's also the way in which the movie feels and how they can market the movie.
But again, it's the studio's choice. They're making choices all over the place in this lawsuit.
Let me finish. Justin Baldoni's cut was more domestically violent, centric, right? It was the raw, true, hard cut, and her cut was less so. Right? They made choices, or maybe it was, but they made choices on her cut based on what they thought were going to be better marketing choices. Let me point this out as a matter of common sense, and why I'm often very critical of supporters of Justin Baldoni, because they don't apply a lot of common sense. Sony is not going to take the lesser cut and release it in order to try and make money on a movie. They're not going to be tricked into releasing an inferior product for Blake Lively.
Never.
That's never going to happen.
That's their money.
There's zero chance. The only reason that Sony agreed to release the cut they did is because they believed that cut was the cut that would make the most money, that was the most marketable to the target demographics for this production. That's it. So you guys are making all this fuss over something that isn't real. He's never going to have final cut. That would just never happen. So he's using something that is common in the industry, a director not having final cut, and flipping it into something that is a dagger against Blake Lively, who
I've been
only
saying this
performed
from the beginning. He's scapegoating her for a creative decision for a creative dispute that he lost.
For a creative decision that the studio made.
Yeah.
Which was to allow Blake Lively to move forward with her cut. And what was happening, by the way, is that basically Blake Lively was basically auditioning to do the cut. By going into the editing room and working with the editors, she was showing Sony that she was capable of being able to direct the cut and give them what they needed, that they were not getting from Justin Baldoni's cut. But it's that simple. There's no conspiracy here. Like, Sony only wants one thing. A great movie that markets. That's all they want. They don't give a shit about any of it. They don't care about it. It's why they tried to get out of the problems in the first place, is because, first of all, they weren't the production company. So it's not their problem. But also because their concern isn't that. Their concern is, deliver me the movie that we've agreed on. That's all they're asking for. They want delivery. It's all about delivery. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense. You just have to spend some time with it and realize, why on God's earth, or this earth, would Sony try to choose an inferior cut? If you think that Blake Lively has some crazy ability to be able to walk into a movie studio and, like, you know, wave some magic wands and turn them into fools who would take lesser cuts and take sides in controversies that are completely wrong or
and then receive emails from them praising her and thanking her for all of her great work and all the wonderful success that she contributed to.
These guys are really good at what they do. I can't express this enough. Like, so you guys can hate on movie studios, but they know how to put out movies.
Yeah.
They make people listen to this, because this is true, and you guys all know this because we're all victims to it. They make people go out and buy with their money bad movies, and they do it all the fucking time. That's how good they are at this. They're good at making people go and see movies. That's their only job. And then they rely on filmmakers like Justin Baldoni. They rely on filmmakers like Blake Lively to produce the content. Their job is just to market it and put it out.
And, Justin Baldoni could have just distributed his own movie and figured out another way, but because he took Sony's money, he has to play Sony's games. Like, I don't understand
Which was Blake Lively, by the way.
I don't know why he's bitching. He benefited from this whole arrangement, and now he doesn't like how they get to have a say when they paid for the whole thing.
Well, I'm so glad you bring this up, because one of the arguments I've constantly made about this whole problem was that these guys were just so inexperienced when it came to working with big... Yeah, Wayfarer was super inexperienced when it came to working with big-time A-list actors and studios. Until then, they'd only really worked with CBS Studios, which runs a totally different hierarchy in terms of the way in which they approve actors, for example. Like the studio goes, like a TV studio would go through a totally different process. Like where, for example, I'm so sorry, excuse me. For example, a movie studio would have a short list, and they would say, hey, listen, here are the actors that you can go and bring in that we'll finance. These are the bankable stars that they know they could go and market to the world and get the kind of return on their investment that they expect.
Blake Lively was on that list.
Certainly. But that's totally different than what they would do in CBS Studios. For example, in CBS Studios, what they do is they go through all these different casting sessions. They don't even care about names. In fact, names have proven not necessarily to be very helpful in the TV space. So they just go through a different casting process where they'll participate as the studio in the casting and literally be a part of the whole approval process. Whereas Sony, other than them like saying, hey, this is what we want, they were basically washing their hands of it, the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? As soon as they had their main pieces in play, Sony's like defers to the movie studio. So it's a very different dynamic that you get from these two different workspaces. And so having Baldoni and Jamie Heath walk in, and remember what I've always said about this situation, which I think is a reasonable thing to at least consider in this situation, which is that they had a billionaire partner, a verified billionaire partner. So it really made them have a certain kind of swagger in that town. It opened doors that would definitely not otherwise be open to people like me. And not only that, but not only did the doors open, but they got treated like they were studio heads just because they had so much influential money behind them. And every studio wants that extra cash. They're always looking for people to pony up and finance movies,
so that's how
they can split risk.
That's how we got this major opportunity, and then he absolutely fucking biffed it.
Correct.
By starting a retaliation scheme against his fucking star.
But where I was going,
so absurd.
Where I was going with this, and I recognize that I've gone a little long, but where I was going with this is that they just weren't prepared for it. They didn't understand the sensitivities around and the dynamic of managing a movie at this level. It's
not just performative for us at this stage in his conflict that he's scapegoating Blake Lively because it's convenient.
Right.
He was scapegoating Blake Lively at the time.
Yeah.
So he's got this really strange, like, distorted perspective of things. When he was asking his editors, he was in a text message thread with his editors.
Yeah.
And this is his evidence that he's shown people.
Yes.
And he's asking, okay, so why am I being prohibited from being involved in this new cut that the studio wants to do? Because the studio's like, we've seen what you can do. We're not interested. We're just going to do our own thing with Blake Lively over here, and we're good. Like, so you can sit this one out.
Well, it's actually more. It's probably more like they said. It's almost certainly like they were like, well, we're having issue. We're not sure about this, or we're not sure about that. And then he would, in that instance, push back.
Yes.
So what usually happens is that they try to like influence the cut with the director, and if the director, which we've seen throughout this whole chain of evidence, that he's defiant.
Yes.
He's defiant with the studio.
So he is asking his editors, because the editors know what's going on, and so he's asking for information from them instead of going through his producers or whatever. I don't know why. But Justin Baldoni's asking, okay, so I'm not allowed to participate in this new edit, and the editors are like, yes, per Sony. That's the answer that the editors give Justin Baldoni.
Per Sony.
And the very next response he says, oh, so I'm not allowed to participate in an actress's cut?
Well, and there's two faux pas there.
He doesn't even. He's like, it blocks it out of his mind. Like, he's like, oh, okay, I can't fight Sony, but I can fight Blake Lively. So I'm just going to immediately like reassign in my head, like completely divert.
Well, I see that differently. I see that as misogyny. Yeah. I see that as an immediate like kick the girl. like I just see that as straight misogyny. Like the instant that he was given information, he like, blamed the girl.
They're too powerful to blame, so I'm gonna blame the one who's less powerful.
Yeah,
it's just immediate scapegoating, and it was just insane to just see it like in his own evidence. I was like, there it is. That's the whole story.
Per Sony.
He's nuts. Okay, so
who's the boss? By the way, Sony is the boss. Was the boss?
The last things I want to talk about are the rest of these items from the filing today.
Yeah,
very juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently the publicists, Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel.
Yeah.
Everybody's involved in discovery at this phase in the lawsuit, so they're supposed to be providing evidence to the other side.
Right.
Okay? These are the allegations we made.
Right, we got the 150 hours without audio coming from those other guys.
Okay, so the publicists, Jennifer Nathan and...
Did you see how many pages
Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel.
Go ahead.
Are you going to listen?
I stepped over you. Go ahead.
Okay. Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel apparently did not produce the text messages that Blake Lively already knows about, where they are talking about JW in Texas, and also where they say that they can bury anyone. Blake Lively has this.
That's very interesting.
They're asking for discovery, and in the whole pile of discovery, they notice that those very incriminating things are missing.
That's so interesting.
And so the lawyer is telling the judge about it today.
So what that means is that they're selecting evidence. That means that they're deciding what to submit.
Yep.
That's not how this works. When you're subpoenaed, you're supposed to provide what's declared in the subpoena as evidence that is relevant to the case. Especially
those text messages where you guys are talking about burying anyone and about JW in Texas.
That is some shit.
Very interesting. Okay, the next item. Steve Sarowitz, who has funded this whole fiasco.
Yes.
Okay. Instead of like actually buying mediation,
he's the billionaire we were talking about,
preventing a lawsuit, he instead wanted to go all in on a lawsuit. So smart.
Moron. Well, okay. I think they were influenced by Melissa Nathan, who wanted the money.
He's just bloodthirsty, and he has no sense. Okay, so Steve Sarowitz produced only 2 documents.
2 pages.
2 whole documents, despite being Wayfarer's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier, not just of the studio and film, but of this litigation as well. That's a quote from the
I'll just say this right now. Rich people, and especially very rich people, they make a mockery of the fucking judicial system.
They're like, it doesn't apply to me.
It's their system.
That's for
They
the
do what they
pores.
want. Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, Kevin Connolly, Scott Bloom, Ethan Suplee, they all sat there and bull-faced lied directly into a camera in a so-called situation where they were like not supposed to, like where we're supposed to legally tell the truth. They didn't give a flying fuck about that. And the reason they don't is because they're practically untouchable. And that's just a fact.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to be able to do about it. Because, if he doesn't produce, then... I mean, you can't say he's like not involved. It's weird. Yeah, well, I mean, they filed a motion to compel, and like these are all a part of a motion to compel. These filings, which the judge, by the way, has given them to I think it's the July 11th. Yes.
So they basically said to Wayfarer, same thing he's been saying all along. You need to tell me why I don't grant this.
Yeah, they have the remainder of the week. So this is all in arguing about the case management, which I guess includes deposition dates and
of course.
And stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so it looks like
and just discovery deadlines and all that.
So the judge is giving everyone until July 11th to state their objections on the case management.
Yep.
We'll see. So we might get more information this week. It's so bananas.
Super big update, man.
I know. I can't believe that they put, apparently, 407 pages of documents about the Vin Diesel litigation as an exhibit.
Yep.
About how Brian Friedman's, in quotes, unprofessional and physically aggressive deposition tactics.
It's absolutely
Not a good
fucking
look.
nuts. It's absolutely fucking nuts.
I can't remember who said it, but apparently our thunderstorm. Oh, it was a Full Dark No Stars was saying that the thunderstorm was really loud in the microphones. So,
oh, that's so cool.
Over the headphones.
So let me just read this because this is like so scathing by Gottlieb. This is in their filing to Judge Lyman. They wrote this false claim. So I'll do the preface. It says, notwithstanding this agreement, the Wayfarer parties have filed an opposition in order to assert baseless, false, and irrelevant accusations about Miss Lively, such as that Miss Lively has failed to diligently engage in discovery and seeks to unnecessarily delay her July 17th deposition. This false claim just so happens to parrot the sanctionable narrative spun by Wayfarer's lead counsel, Brian Freeman, who's spelled Freeman in this, but that's why I said Freeman.
Well, it's wrong.
For months, namely that Miss Lively is hiding the truth and afraid of being deposed. To be clear, all of this is categorically false. Not only has Miss Lively repeatedly stated that she intends to move forward with her deposition on July 17th, it is actually the Wayfarer parties who just hours after submitting their opposition yesterday sought to take that deposition off of the calendar. And I'm telling you, this is just their means. This is their means of trying to set her up so that they can get their influencers. Because those guys will go and start screaming bloody hell. The Andy Signors, the Sassy Dave Navarros.
But also, like, can I just point out, when in the history of like pop culture have any of us given a shit about when a celebrity does a deposition? Like, I swear, every single day you guys are like making a big catastrophe out of stuff that we've never ever cared about before. It's like they're like they have you on short leashes, right? It's like so weird. I don't care when her deposition is. I just want to know when the trial is and when we get to hear everything that comes out of the deposition. But when she decides to do it, like, why is that a scandal anybody's talking about?
It's not.
Who gives a fuck?
It's fucking not a scandal.
She's gonna get deposed, whether it happens today or whether she's delaying. Like, who cares?
It does not matter.
It's also within her right to delay if she wanted to. No, I'm not saying that she is, but like, why are we having the discussion? It's so dumb.
Really dumb.
One thing, just in closing, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah.
Cosmic Urgency said that Sony understood. Okay, this is great.
Yeah.
Sony understood most of us just wanted to swoon over Brandon Sklenar, get chills over the inclusion of Lana Del Rey, clutch our pearls over the domestic violence, and cheer at the end. It's such creative writing, bro.
That's really good.
Like, what are we doing?
Was gossip fucking ruining shit again?
Yes.
Okay.
But he's not the only one, so I figured.
Misrepresentation that they were responding to a request that Miss Lively. I want to continue this quote. This is another quote from Gottlieb in his filing. So this was like continuing on. The reality, contrary to Wayfarer Party's alternative facts, is that Miss Lively is ready and eager to sit for her deposition on July 17th, which is why, and in parenthetical he writes, unlike the majority of the Wayfarer parties, she substantially completed her document production well in advance of the deposition date. This is a really critical point that he's trying to make, because they want to try to create this idea that she's uncooperative. But what's interesting is that in order to prepare for a deposition of a deponent, you're going to need that discovery. You have to have it.
That's right.
So if she was trying to delay anything at all, it would have been in the delaying of the discovery, which we do see in the Wayfarer parties.
You know what's so funny too is that she's such like a brainy, one of those brainy girls too. Like, so it's so obvious that she's like in a group project. She like gets all of her work done first. Like, she produced all the discovery and she was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, right, exactly. Wait, what? Do we have time for a baby? We can make one more baby. No, she's a bitchy chick. Well, you know when you have a lot of assistants, like if I could just get an editor, you have no idea how successful we'd be.
The power that would be unleashed if only Dale had an editor.
I tell you make your jokes. Mock me, woman.
Do you have more to read from that? Because I was wondering if you wanted to continue or whether we should wrap up for the day.
Before we wrap up, I want to make a product endorsement. I want to make our first actual product endorsement. These are not.
This live is brought to you by
Vornado's fucking box fan, bro.
Vornado has a box fan.
Vornado released a box fan that I bought.
Oh my God, you guys, we set this thing up in our house and it changed our life. Like,
it changed
instantly.
our lives. It created a summer cool breeze.
It's like 90 degrees out here. No, like 95, whatever. The heat index is insane.
Unbearably hot. The world is burning.
And this is like a super, super old apartment we're in. And this thing is creating a spring breeze. Out of warm air. I don't know how it's doing it.
It's like a weather phenomenon. Like literally, like you're sitting on like a mound beneath a tree reading a book, and all of a sudden like a little breeze comes in, and it just like cools you right off, and then goes about its business. And then like 30 seconds later, another one happens, and all it is this box fan, guys.
I took a nap on the couch today.
Yeah.
And it was like I was in a hammock outside on a beautiful spring day.
It is a thing.
And I was not.
I feel like there are things you can do to make you feel like you're a billionaire.
Yes.
I feel like this is like the kind of climate control that really rich people want that they have in their house. Maybe it's quieter. Maybe it's not as unsightly perhaps as my big box fan is.
I think you do have to be a rich person to have space for this kind of thing. It's a big thing. It's like 20 inches by 20 inches. That takes up a lot of space. Our house is kind of small, but it's worth it. So that's the conclusion of your advertisement.
Yeah, let's go quickly through Mary Tanny. Any questions? Can you see if there's any questions that are worth answering? Because they're saying we're not answering their questions, and I thought I answered a bunch of the questions.
We have been, and they're also just like rehashing the same shit that we've been talking about.
Let me just go over them real quick because I don't mind them coming by and answering them. I try to answer all of our friends' questions.
A lot of it is just argumentative.
I don't get that part. I see you guys won't answer my questions. I'm asking good questions. Let me see your good questions. I wish Blake would show proof or something. Well, she is. She's not showing it to you. You understand that, right? She's showing that to the court, the judge.
Yeah, it's actually super strange that everybody is expecting to see evidence in a civil lawsuit.
She doesn't owe you anything.
It's actually super, like, Brian Friedman has set up this really strange ecosystem where we expect to see anything of the case. Like, it's really not normal for him to do that, for him to show anything about his case to us. So, like, we saw those filings, and Blake Lively does have evidence of the retaliation, and that's in her court filings. But any of the other stuff that she would be showing us is just she's saving it for the trial because that's the goal. We're not entitled to see any of this stuff, and the reason why is because she is not conducting a smear campaign, so she doesn't have a reason to show everybody who's gossiping online like we are.
I just reread Cosmic Urgency's like stellar comment.
Isn't it great?
He's writing like he's
good.
Yeah, and I hope he keeps writing because that's really a fucking lovely sentence, like that's a lovely little. I mean, it's not like some kind of literary, like calm down, but it was very entertaining.
All right, Dale.
And let me just go one more time. Let me quick here. Let me go. I'm just wondering if she didn't cover up or make him leave until she covers up and comes back in.
Okay, but here's the thing: is if somebody
this is the patch thing.
I think that this is about her trailer. Okay, so it's just like it's a whole can of.
No, this is the breastfeed. Oh no, this is breastfeeding thing. Whatever bullshit.
Here's the thing: is like she's like, okay, well, hey, you have permission this one time doesn't mean blanket permission every time to enter the trailer, right? And then the other time that she was changing, she asked him to turn around and expected him to comply with that very reasonable, very simple request. It's like these are not. This isn't. She was put in uncomfortable situations by having to explain why she was upset about people disrespecting her private space. Right. And I don't think that that's unreasonable.
So Maria Tanny says, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to see your side. But honestly, with the breastfeeding and the dancing scenes, it's really hard to believe that she is the victim. And I just want to point something out. Two things. The first thing is that the dancing scene is an absolutely perfect example of sexual harassment and how it works. It doesn't matter if you think it's offensive to you or not. That has nothing to do with it. You weren't in the circumstance that she was in. You weren't in the engagement that she was in. You didn't feel the energy between them. You didn't understand any of the dynamics leading up to or what happened after after that moment, let alone what happened in the moment itself. So putting yourself in that moment seems like a little bit, it seems like a disingenuous way to look at this, because there's no way that you can subjectively put yourself in a situation or objectively put yourself in a situation that she's in to relate to her. So I just don't think that's a fair shake by you saying that that dancing scene is somehow, I don't know if you heard the horny growl, but there's a horny growl in that thing that is so obviously sexual harassment in my book that if you did that, if I was her husband and I heard that in a fucking daily, I'd be like, what is with like this guy?
About 5.5 minutes into the video file.
5.5 minutes.
He does he turns
in an MOS scene.
He turns her for a spin, and then he laughs as he brings her in, and then as soon as she's super close, like I took a screenshot, they're like their noses are this far apart.
Yeah.
He does this like guttural growl.
Yeah.
Straight to her.
It's a horny growl.
And it is literally the only thing that could possibly be done in that whole scene where he is in character.
Correct.
So people are saying like, oh, well, he's playing a character growl. It's literally the only sound he makes as his character the entire time.
Well, not to mention that
he's talking to her.
He was going in and out of character conveniently then, because, you know, he can conveniently go into character and do things like horny growls and be perverse or be insensitive, but then he could come out of character and talk about Ryan Reynolds, talk about his wife, talk about, you know, the lights on the set, directing, whatever else. So the reality is that he wasn't in character.
He made a sound right into her face.
Yes.
That was for her.
Yeah.
And I think that she received that, because her response after is she says, okay, and then we can back up, is what she says right after. Like, you could see she's struggling so hard to
managing
stay
the situation.
She's struggling so hard to stay in character for the camera, because he's being handsy, and she keeps trying to get him back on his mark and to back up.
I just want to stress once again, 100%, that her perception of that is the only thing that matters in a sexual harassment claim. It doesn't matter whether or not you think it's got merit. It doesn't matter or not whether you think it's egregious or absolutely non-existent. It's her experience that matters. Only her experience. So, so there's you bring nothing to the table when you bring up this concept that this dance didn't or wasn't offensive. You cannot speak for her, and so you're wrong. You have to be wrong in that situation. But the other thing is the breastfeeding. And this one really drives me crazy. And the reason it drives me crazy is because to give somebody permission in a singular incident, for example, if I gave my
access to your private room, meaning permission.
Let me finish, please. If I gave my landlord permission to enter my apartment on a specific day, my landlord says, hey, I got to come into your apartment because I got to do something, and I say, I'm not going to be there. Well, is it okay if I go in even though you're not there? And I say yes. That does not mean my landlord can now walk into my apartment at that time, anytime he wants, like any other day. Like, he can't come back tomorrow at 10 a.m. and do the same thing. He can come back a week later without asking me. It's not it's a case-by-case basis. You know, and we're talking about breastfeeding. So obviously there are going to be moments where it's like, yeah, this is no big deal, the situation, versus say a moment where she might just personally just be feeling vulnerable, uncomfortable, emotionally, unwell. It could be any myriad of reasons.
Or she just wants her trailer to be a private space.
Exactly. That's
what it's for.
Highly significant reason in and of itself. So this idea that she's not being harassed when just because she's allowed him in one time is I can't believe you don't recognize how weak that is. Like, I don't understand. Like, how many things have you given a blanket approval for?
I don't know why he's even arguing it. I mean, he's supposed to be this guy who's like super sensitive about that sort of stuff. His wife has a business that is entirely revolves around like new mothers and breastfeeding equipment and all kinds.
It's just another form of gaslighting. It's literally another form of gaslighting, because it's just him saying they're trying to convince you that because she let him into the trailer that one time that was some kind of universal permission slip, and it wasn't. And this is where it gets a little fucking annoying, because like, man, you're playing with words, you're playing with situations, and you're doing that to manipulate the facts so that you can make one person look different than the other, and it's horseshit. So anyway, I think that's a wrap. You got anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you were saying that it's harassment is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Right. I think what's important in a litigation.
Thank you for putting that in the exact way I should always from now on.
I think what's important in a litigation is that she complained, right?
Yeah.
And Justin Baldoni, in his own text messages and messages to people, is admitting that he recognized that there was an issue and that he'll change. Okay, so this is not refuted. So the important part is that she complained about behavior that she thought was troubling on set, and that they didn't do anything to fix it until she demanded it, and then after that meeting, he started to retaliate.
That's the problem here. That is the point. That's the whole problem. And she didn't even recognize the extent of it until she started seeing this thing start to really unravel around her. But look, that's the whole problem here. And had he not have retaliated, I've said this time and again, just in case you don't know, I wrote and produced a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I know my way around a set. I definitely know my way around sort of sticky situations. And when you have a situation where there's a complaint being lodged on your set, the thing you do is you solve it. You remedy that. And the way that you remedy that is you make sure that the person complaining has their complaint heard, that there's actions taken that are appropriately satisfactory to the complainant, that the complainant feels completely handled, and then you address the entire crew and you tell them that there was a complaint, that complaint was handled, and that you want to make sure that everybody has a clear and defined way in which they can go through a process of lodging any future complaints, and how any kind of harassment would be, not tolerated, and that you're, going to make sure that everybody feels safe and comfortable on your set. And that's the kind of way you run a set and make sure that, things like this are handled. And when you don't, they blow up, things go wrong, and you end up in a situation like we have here today with these two.
We had a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Claire is asking, what are these different producers?
Oh, right. I promised I would answer that question. Okay, we'll go through this really quickly. So look, executive producer and producer.
Oh, no. I think specifically about Sony producers.
Well, Sony's going to bring executive producers. This is in
the context we were talking about Sony and how Sony, that Justin Baldoni's not suing Sony and not even naming Sony executives and Sony producers. So Ange Gianetti is the name of one of the Sony producers that was assigned to this to the production.
Yeah. Okay. She was an executive producer, I presume.
So she is named in Blake Lively's lawsuit, but she is not named in Justin Baldoni's. He explicitly refers to these people without a name. He redacts them, but Blake Lively is naming them, and so we know exactly who these people are.
An executive producer from the studio side can serve as a supervising producer capacity, meaning that they're there to observe the asset, the working of the asset. They'll also be mediator to problems. They might be a liaison to, for example, movies are often over budget. So then you have your Sony liaison go back and be like, we need more money, So they serve as a function to make sure that they're there to watch and make sure that Sony's interests are being handled, and that if they're not, then they go back and they end up meeting and conferring and coming back with solutions to problems if those problems exist. So those people are often credited as executive producers. Very rarely are they actual producers. Usually if a studio is producing the movie, then they might bring on studio producers in the same way that Miramax, when Miramax occasionally would produce a movie from top to bottom and Harvey would take a producing credit, though that was even rare. He was always an executive producer. That's typically the roles that you would get on in the studio side of things. Mm-hmm. So that's part of why Blake Lively and the executive producer role, that she, the reason why she wanted a producer role is because that's more defined. It's more recognized as a more defined role of the creation of the film, whereas an executive producer can be any myriad of things. It can be like a liaison to the studio. It could be a financier. It could be somebody who brought one specific piece of talent or a chunk of change, some money from an investor, for example. An executive producer could also be somebody who performs very similar to a regular producer, where they're contributing at the same level, meaning that they're contributing not only on the level of creating opportunities through attachments like actors or significant financial arrangements, but also they're contributing to the creative development of the screenplay, development of the writer, development of the director, these kinds of things. So you can find executive producers playing the same role as producers, but why executive producers might not want that credit and want a producer's credit instead is because of how diluted the executive producer role is. It's extremely diluted, whereas the producer role is a little more defined. Usually producers are more emphatically involved with the actual creation of the property as opposed to the overseeing of it, or just participating in its creation through things like attachments and financing.
Well, thank you for that. That was very clear.
You guys are so great, man, but I'm at the point where I think I'm starting to lose my speech capabilities.
Guilty Angel was because we had these people arguing in the chat.
Yeah.
Like the guy you put in timeout yesterday left right in as soon as he was released. It was like the
his 24. He was like sitting there like what? Tick tock, tick tock.
Exactly, left right back into the chat.
Hi, hello.
Yeah,
I'm here to piss you off.
So I love that Guilty Angel kept commenting with like volcano emojis and stuff. And said, "I am being so good today."
Hey, listen, you know what?
Because you know how she's usually our little like bulldog? I love it. It's so wonderful.
Call me a dog?
Huh?
Are you calling me a dog?
No, everybody loves to have a friend who's ready to fight.
I sure do. I said that right in the early part of my book. In the early part of my book, I was like, I wish I had somebody who fight for me to get a movie, you know, the way De Niro fought for my guy. You guys, we got 4,000 likes over on TikTok. We got, and we got like plenty of likes over on YouTube. It was a really great night.
I had a nice time. Did you?
Yeah. I today I was like, man, I'm not gonna get super upset at anybody or anything tonight.
Yeah, you nailed it. I also really liked your product endorsement. I thought that was cute.
The Vornado box fan. I'm a fan. You guys are amazing. I tell you every night, and I will not ever stop. I truly love hanging out with you, and we are so privileged to be able to spend this evening and every evening with you talking about all this silliness. Because in it, underlying in all the silliness, there's important shit going on. There's important shit. There's a lot of things that we can like share and help maybe wake some people up. And it's not about being woke. It's about being awake. It's about being aware. It's about taking the time to understand what's truly going on around you so that you can really see not only how things actually are, but that you're being manipulated.
You recognize when you're being played, bro, because it's happening. It's happening with this story, and they're doing it. They're getting away with it too easily. Like, don't let them.
I think a little part of my dedication to this channel, to this effort that we're doing, this new thing that we love and that we enjoy and that we think can lead to something cool, is to help people, to have a place where people can come and get information safely, where we can be wrong, but where it's not some kind of propaganda, where it's not some kind of, I'll never ever pick up the phone to a publicist who wants to buy our space to manipulate truth, ever. And we just live in a world where, unfortunately, that happens more than not. Mm-hmm. You guys are amazing. Really do appreciate every minute we have with you, and I can't wait to spend more with you tomorrow. Good night, Angela.
Good night.
Bye-bye, guys. Goodbye, TikTok. You guys are so sweet. Oh, listen to that thunder, bro. I'm gonna go chew some cherries or something. Good night.
We always talk about what you're